Yeah. Yeah, we're looking at owls. We're looking at owls. So, I guess now that my channel is monetized, they're sending me information as to, like, another channel used some of my content. And they're like, another channel used some of your content. You want to do a copyright claim? You want to do a copyright claim? Huh? And I'm like, well, let's see what happened. Right? I'm actually completely, I think that that's dumb. I think it's stupid that there is such a thing as a copyright claim. Everyone should be able to use everyone's content all the time, especially on a platform like YouTube. If I take a YouTube video and use it in my YouTube video, right? Maybe there should be like a little nod, or maybe that should count as a like on somebody else's page, or a view or something, right? Maybe a penny or a one-tenth of a penny can go in their direction or something. Anyway, so the copyrighted content, and I was thinking, maybe somebody's like made like a response video or something, right? That happens on YouTube all the time, where people take somebody's clip and then they play it and they comment on it and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool, maybe that's what's happening here, right? That might be interesting. I take a look. The clip that they've used is a clip from one of my videos where I was showing owls. So I'm like in the corner, as I am. Hi, I'm in the corner. And I gotta tell you, hey Eric, how you doing, bud? I took a look at that owl video and I thought, man, owls are sweet. You know what I love me owls. I think that they're the coolest. You just look at them and you're like, no wonder they became like the symbol for wisdom, you know? Just them standing there, just being an owl. You're just like, yeah, that owl knows something's going on. That owl knows more than it's letting on, right? And then when you do like a scientific breakdown of owls, you're like, yeah, owls do know more than they seem. Their feathers are built in such a way, like the feathers around their face actually act as like a sonar dish. And so they can hear sounds from like a mile away because the sound wave gets amplified by their feathers that funnel directly into their ears. It's like literally like, it's like they've got like big Ferengi ears and they can hear from like forever away, which is how you end up with these situations where owls will like come down on like a mouse that's scratching underneath the snow or under the ground or something, because they can hear the mouse scritching underground and they can like deaden the sound of like wind and stuff. And then on top of that, these guys are developed in such a way so that cats with wings, I've never heard that before, but now that you mention it, yeah, it does seem to have that kind of, they've done sound recording of different birds. So they'll have like a set of microphones set, and then they'll have a bird fly over it. And every bird makes some kind of sound as it flutters over, right? Like you imagine like a pigeon or a crow or something, right? An owl will fly over a set of microphones and it will be silent. Dead silent. Like the little line that indicates that a sound is going will not move a single inch. They fly, they can fly truly silently. So like, can you imagine what it would be like being like 1,000 years ago, a human being, or like 10,000 years ago? Like forget about like even remotely civilized or modern humans. Hey, Ligandese, how you doing, bud? And you're just kind of chilling out, right? You're like, you know, prehistoric man, right? You've got a stick with a stone on the edge of it, and an owl flies over and just picks something up from under the ground and just flies off. You'd be like, owls have magical powers. Yeah, owls have mystical powers. It's probably bad luck to kill one of these things. I just am putting that out there. I think it's probably a bad idea to kill one of these. I was wondering, do you have any sources that demonstrates that Putin crushes leftist movement? I'm currently having discussions with the laddie trying to make the argument that Putin is pro-worker. My instinct is not, because he is a neo-Tsar. I haven't seen anything directly that Putin is actively... Like, I mean, if Putin... I shouldn't say that. I don't have a source on hand, but I do know that Putin has gone after opposition before, leftist opposition. One of the big leftists... It's a little bit different now because there's actually like a fairly substantial communist, Stalinist opposition that has come up in the past few years. Hey, Famita, how you doing? Good to see you. We're looking at owls. We're looking at owls. Talking about Putin, looking at owls. I'm in the mood for owls, man. I gotta tell you. Just like I saw some owls, and I'm all about it. Can I get into a better view? No, this is fine. This is fine. But before that leftist guard kind of came up and there was a larger opposition, I do know that there was, and I'm blanking on his name. It's like something like Alexander something or other. You know who would really know this offhand, I think, would be either Watson or Mocked. I bet you. If you wait and ask this question again when Mocked or Watson are in the chat, I bet they'd know offhand. I can't remember his name. It's like Alexander something or other. And he literally did prison time. So, and I don't know the full story on that. So for all I know, he was like throwing Molotov cocktails and shit. And I'm like, I just don't know about it. But I wouldn't say that Putin is, from what I have observed, I wouldn't say that Putin is pro-worker. That's the guy. Alexei Navalny. Hey, Demand Better, how you doing, bud? Been a minute. Good to see you, bud. And yeah, please, everybody, like, share, subscribe, tell the world I exist. Look at does everybody else know about this guy? Am I the only one that didn't know this guy's name? Sentenced to 9 years in jail. Yeah, Putin critic Alexander Navalny sentenced to 9 years in prison after being found guilty of fraud. Urged his supporters to show their opposition after a court. I mean, you can... I gotta be really straight. Like, you can find any lawyer you like guilty of fraud. I have a buddy who is a lawyer, and he, like, we've gotten into big conversations about the nature of fraud and what fraud can do. And his position was basically like, everyone should always do fraud. Like, you're always rewarded for it. Even if you do jail time, they don't take away the money you made. And even if they do take away some of the money that you made, you always make more than you lose. It's just always a good thing to do. You should always do fraud. And then he also says that, like, anyone, any lawyer, you could nail with fraud if you wanted to. So, and a 9-year prison sentence for fraud, I doubt it. Honestly, I doubt it. So... and again, I have never done the deep dive on this. For all I know, Navalny is absolutely corrupt. But I suspect that, like, to do business in post-Soviet Russia is to deal with corruption. So my opinion on this always was that Putin was getting rid of one of the most prominent voices that was dissenting against him. I just don't think it's too convenient. You know, it's too convenient. It just smacks of using his power in order to get this result, you know, and to do damage to someone who's a critic so that, and I do think it backfired, incidentally. Like, I think that the arrest and sentencing of Navalny is part of the reason why the opposition is so fierce now in Russia. Like, the Russians aren't the type to back down on this kind of stuff, and so I think it definitely backfired. Again, though, as I say this, anytime I get into this kind of conversation, I always want to be, like, really specific. Like, I don't have receipts. This is speculative, everything that I'm saying. I do know that Putin's not. How to say this really properly? Putin has done things in his career as a leader, as a ruler, that could be interpreted as pro-worker because they're not explicitly capitalist neoliberal, right? That he has ordered factories to reopen. He has contemplated nationalization and even done nationalization, right? He's enacted these sorts of things by decree, you know, and to which I think the working class and workers have looked at and gone, well, that has benefited workers, and the workers that benefited are certainly like, yeah, that benefited me. But I think that Putin didn't do these things on behalf of the workers. He didn't think to himself, this will help the workers, therefore I will do it. I think that he does these things because he views himself as the ruler of Russia. He views himself as a king, as a Tsar, and it wouldn't do, right? It wouldn't do to have these factories not operating. It wouldn't do to not have these sorts of things. Like, I think that he does these actions and acts in this way because he sees himself as needing to be a good ruler, right? And whether or not he is a good ruler is still up for debate. And of course, the people who you should pay attention to the most in that conversation are the Russians themselves. My perception of Putin as a ruler is that he's better than Yeltsin and Gorbachev. Yeah, like he definitely wants his society to be seen as a positive force. He wants it to be stable. He wants it to be respected and respectable, and he wants to be viewed as a respected leader. Like, all of those things are true, and I also think that Putin is smarter than Yeltsin and Gorbachev and Khrushchev. I think he's just straight up, I think he's just smarter. And so, no big news outside of Ukraine, Russia. Yeah, dude, all the news is outside Ukraine, Russia. No new news in the Ukraine, Russia front. We won't be talking too much about it today. We're only talking about Putin right now because Eric was curious about Putin crushing leftist dissent. And the only real thing that I'm familiar with of Putin doing that is the arrest of Alexei Navalny, which I think he would say, well, yeah, it was fraud, and he was doing some fraud. I'm like, yeah, but come on, man. Like, if you're doing business in Russia, if you're a lawyer in Russia, you're engaged in fraud. Like, it's a post-Soviet Russia. Like, it's incredibly corrupt, right? So, like, everybody's guilty of fraud. You're always doing fraud. And 9 years for fraud, that's a lot. That's a lot. No, Putin's not a communist. Like, I think that communism as an ideal or as a way of thinking exists within Russia. It's part of the fabric of the nation at this point. But I wouldn't say that Putin is particularly interested in becoming more communist or making it more communist. Croatian MP called out Trudeau in European Parliament in front of his face today. Wow, what'd he say? What'd he say? Fuck Trudeau. Anytime anybody wants to dunk on Trudeau, I'm happy to read it. What do we got? Watson, you're the weirdo, Watson. You guy with your face. Yeah. I'm in a bit of a silly mood today, I guess. Croatian MP called out Trudeau in EU Parliament. Yeah, of course it's all going to be like, Trudeau calls on European leaders to unite. Yeah, Trudeau! Well, it didn't make big enough news, right? And the state media isn't gonna. I'd love to see that, though. No, we're gonna be talking about, first of all, owls. Owls are sweet, right? Let's always remember how sweet we think owls are, right? I love them to pieces. From Richard Medhurst, Visa and MasterCard pulled out of Russia. China saw the opportunity, came in, and linked its UnionPay to Russians' Mir system. Now Carcass is in talks to link Mir to Venezuela. The West shooting itself in the foot again. Richard Medhurst has been the voice on this, near as I can tell. He is very keen on showing how Russia, China, the global South generally is beginning to unify and beginning to create larger systems of contact in the face of the imperialist West. And this kind of thing right here, right? This links China and Russia together more closely, and then steadily will link Venezuela to that as well. And it's just more evidence. It's just more evidence that the West is getting isolated, and there's no end to it in sight, if you ask me. We won't do the number quite yet. I think the big thing to talk about is no, I mean, like the Canadian Patriot. We can take a look, but just the classic stuff, right? People are talking about global warming. To limit global warming, rich countries like Canada must end oil and gas production by 2034. That's not going to happen. Straight up. It's not going to happen at all. From the Narwhal, right? The Canadian oil and gas companies that want to put the brakes on climate financial transparency. Yeah, of course they do. So lots of climate conversation. The big news of the day, if you ask me, though, Madeleine Albright going to meet the devil, right? The world becomes slightly brighter as one of the true demons of the modern age exits. I have literally nothing good to say about this woman. She has ushered in one of the largest catastrophes in history. The neoliberal period will be seen as an outright decimation of even common sense, right? And hilariously called the Common Sense Revolution. Or is that somebody? I don't know. More drama regarding the ONDP Hamilton candidate. Apparently, they were an Islamophobic Facebook group. That's why ONDP removed him. He was MPP for 15 years, and they just found out. Yeah, come on. Well, it's kind of amazing how like little people. Oh yeah, the Jen Zedong quarantine JR. Oh my God, right? For those of you who don't know, there's a subreddit on Reddit called Jen Zedong. That it hasn't been banned, it hasn't been removed from Reddit, but it has been quarantined, and it's obviously an anti-communist McCarthy type silencing. That's obviously what it is. That they can't cite any specific egregious act. They like the spreading of misinformation is what they're trying to peg it with, but it's like. What, like sharing CIA documents, showing recordings of things that officials actually say, you know, it's Jen Zedong's big sin is that they support an alternative narrative, right? Like that's it. That's all, right? That they simply support an alternative narrative, and that alternative narrative is that the neoliberal death cult is going to destroy us all. Like that Jen Zedong views America as bad, and that's it. Like that's the end of it. It's and there's not going to be. And what's scary about these events happening, like what's scary about the banning of RT, what's scary about the quarantining of our Russia, Jen Zedong, all of this kind of stuff. It's just widening the miscommunication gap that exists in the country and the inability of voices to actually be heard and the inability of people to actually understand each other and to actually come together and find compromise positions, right? Like, that's the thing. I've been saying it on my videos all like this whole time. Like, the most damaging and devastating thing that is happening in our discourse is that leftists don't have a seat at the table. That there's this entire side of the conversation that gets excluded. That when you end up with panel discussions, you end up with a, like, literal neo-fascist, like, and at this point, Nazis. Like, we can start saying it, right? Like, you have Nazis and Nazi sympathizers, and then you end up with, like, a conservative, and then a liberal, and the liberal is called a progressive, and that's the panel discussion, right? So you get three voices, all of them to the right, and no one is involved in the conversation saying, hey, we should actually take a look at like alternative to solutions to capital, right? And not even things that are particularly outrageous for this country, like. Shell Canada started as a nationalized crown corporation, right? It was controlled by the state, and it became privatized in the 80s, right? And so not that long ago, the oil and gas sector here in Canada was nationalized, that it was controlled by the state. And But if you were to stand up and actually say that, right, in any of these panel discussions, to be like, maybe we should look at state intervention and nationalization again as a serious pursuit, well, you would be called a crazy commie, right? You wouldn't even be permitted a seat at the table. And that's become very dangerous because there are times where the best thing to do, the best solution, is to simply bite the bullet and say, look, the free market's not working here. It's just not doing the job, right? And if it's not even doing the job, then you have to say, well, we have to make this work. Like, we've got to put it together. And I think, Eric, going back to our conversation about Putin, I think this is why Putin gets hit with, like, people start saying he's pro-worker or any of this kind of stuff, is because while he is himself interested and invested in maintaining a neoliberal capitalist structure, there are many times where he has looked at situations and been like, fuck this, nationalize this, we're forcing you guys to sign a document saying you're reopening. Like, let's go. He's not, I don't think he's pro-worker, but I don't think he's pro-capitalist either. Like, I just think that he wants the factory to work, you know? He's not interested. Like, Putin, unlike Western capitalists, I think Putin does understand that manufacturing is part of national security, right? Because of the history of Russia, right? That Russia has been invaded so often and has experienced true traumas repeatedly. It's built into the fabric of the nation. This constant narrative of needing to have vigilance and to be defensive and to be aware of threats. And part of that is making sure that the factories are running, right? Like, not to get tripped over on your dick the way the Americans are about to experience, right? Like, and if the capitalist system refuses to keep it going, like if things collapse and the capitalists can't make it happen, then Putin's going to come in and tell them to do it. And say to their faces, there will be serious consequences if you don't do this. And I think that gives people the genuine opinion, or gives some people, it opens up the conversation to the idea that Putin is pro-worker, when I think Putin is just pro-nation. And I don't mean he's a nationalist in the fascist kind of way. I mean that he just, like, he sees himself as a king, as a Tsar, and he wants his country to be good, you know? Like, I think he has a very strong sense of ownership and a strong sense of patriotism towards his own country, and he also understands his position in history. Or if he doesn't understand his position in history, he has a vision of his position in history. You just need to listen to him talk to see that that's the case. And he's becoming a very interesting figure in this very pivotal moment in Russian history, right? That, like, I think he thought that somebody said earlier that he was a pro-Western neoliberal. And I think at the beginning of his life that was true, right? He wouldn't have, the Americans wouldn't have allowed him to take power, and Gorbachev and Khrushchev and all these guys, not Khrushchev, Yeltsin, like, probably wouldn't have allowed him to come to power if he had an anti-American or anti-Western view. But it's pretty clear that over time he has come to, like, it's the come down moment. The come down moment for Putin had to have been when he was rejected from NATO. Like, when they didn't let Russia into NATO, that's what we call in the business a red flag. That's a big red flag, man. Like, that's like trying to woo a girl, right? And she keeps letting you take her out on dates, and you keep, like, buying her nice stuff, and you keep having a good time, and she laughs at your jokes and all this kind of stuff. But when you lean in for the kiss, she leans away, right? Well, you can keep fooling yourself if you like, but eventually there comes a point where you start wondering, like, hey, why is she keeping you around exactly? What is the story here? Like, I'm hoping for some kind of, right? And if they're not delivering, right? What's the story here? And then you have the Georgian situation, right? Like the Georgian situation was very much. I actually have a video here that I wanted to show, and I will, where Putin is talking about the situation in Georgia, and he's very explicit. Like people are trying to condemn him for his use of violence, and he's just like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like the Americans were fomenting a coup in Georgia, which they were, and what were we supposed to do? Just let it happen, right? Like it's so it's so crazy that at this moment in time there really is like a king, like a king with nukes in the conversation. That like China is more like a council system that creates, like Xi Jinping ends up being more or less an ambassador, right? That the system of the National People's Congress ends up being more of a council system and like a training ground for rulers. Whereas and like the American like liberal democracy has like two kind of edifices that are essentially two popularity contests that vie against one another for who gets control of all of this. Whereas Putin's just a king. And it's like, well, we live in like a nuclear world where there's like all of this like crazy shit going on. Like the Chinese are turning on like quantum suns and shit, and like we're getting into like space exploration and all of this stuff. And there's literally a country, a major country, that's ruled just by a king. It strikes me from time to time. I'm just like, man, like what the fuck? Like it's not more complicated than that. Plato's skin is running for CPR leadership. Yeah, we'll see about that. We need to take all oligarchs' wealth and use it to solve the greatest issues of our time: climate crisis, poverty, privatization of systems we all need. Yeah, not going to happen until we surround the halls of power. Straight up. Not going to happen until we actually surround the halls of power and actually like do our due diligence. People are fooling themselves, man. Like this situation with the NDP propping up the liberal government until 2025. Like the liberal government is not doing anything serious about climate change. Like it genuinely doesn't care, right? Like it cares that you think it cares. That's what it cares. And look at this big boy right here. This fucking badass. Don't you fuck with my meat. This is my meat, you motherfucker. Love it. And the NDP propping him up. And I've got an article here from the Maple. Where did that go? Oh, come on now. I had it. Right in front. Isn't this always the way? I had it. But it's pointing out that all the NDP really got from the Liberals is like a small boost and an expansion on one of the agreements that they had already made, and so it's essentially nothing is what they've got, if you ask me. Like the Liberals have already said that they were going to move forward on things like dental care with the NDP. They've already said this. Have they? No. Like. I think the NDP more or less find themselves in the position that, like, well, they can either go with a vote of no confidence and risk facing the electorate and trying to convince the electorate that Justin Trudeau isn't acting in the interest of the people. But I gotta be straight with you guys. Like, if I'm the NDP right now, I'm like, what's it gonna take to convince these people? What's it gonna take to convince people that the Liberals don't give a fuck? Like, literally, Justin Trudeau came out in front of us wearing blackface, said that, oh, we're going to get off oil by 2050 while increasing production. Like, what's it actually going to take to convince people who are supporting these Liberals to stop? Right? I don't know. Like, literally, they're funding Nazis. Like, I just don't know what it's actually going to take anymore. And I think that's the major problem that the NDP are faced with. Is that they're worried that if the election gets called early, they're the ones that are going to get punished. Because turns out that if Canadians have to choose between an actual minority wearing a turban and somebody who cosplays as a minority, they're going to go with the cosplayer. Right? Like, So a little part of me is sympathetic to the NDP on this, because what are they supposed to do exactly? Right? Like, it's all well and good to say they shouldn't prop up the government, but then they'll get punished. Right? Like, the populace will give Trudeau, Mr. Blackface man funding the Nazis over here, his majority. And that's not what we want. Right? So what are they supposed to do exactly? And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to save face. Right? They're trying to save face. Here, hold on. I'm going to go back to that one and play that one again. Just because I know this one is good to play, so it's safe. Like, that's what's scary about this current situation, if you ask me, with the climate crisis, poverty, privatizations of systems, and all this kind of stuff. We know that the liberals don't give a fuck about any of this. They don't care at all. And we know the conservatives don't either. Right? And why don't they? Because ultimately the populace doesn't care. Right? Like, that's the harsh reality that no one wants to actually accept, is that the people who are voting conservative and the people who are voting liberal don't actually care about these issues. Right? And that Canada actually doesn't give a fuck at all. That when I say that we are the evildoers, we are the bad guys, it looks like that's more and more the case. That Canadians don't care about climate change. They don't care about poverty. They don't care about the privatization of their systems. They don't care. Right? Like, there just comes a point where you got to bite the bullet and accept it. Because if they did care, they'd actually do something. They'd actually vote for someone else. They would stop supporting these people. Right? But they do. So, like, proof's in the pudding. Right? And so then you got to start asking the question, okay, well, what is it the Canadians do care about? Right? Like, what is it that Canadians actually do care about? And to me, it looks like Canadians care about selling themselves to an oligarchy and watching the world burn down around them. Like, there does come a point where you got to call it and just be like, looks like we're into it. Right? Looks like we're down for it. Like, what's the media that everyone's consuming right now in their spare time? Right? Post-apocalyptic wastelands. Looks like we want it, right? That's the demand. So supply and demand, right? So anytime we spend any time in, like, our free time, what do? We watch movies about gods who are assholes, jerking off about their own powers, and post-apocalyptic wastelands and serial killer movies, right? Like, and that's what we're doing for entertainment. So, like, What is it that we want to manifest in this world? What like, when we start asking the bigger questions about what we are and what we're doing as a people in the world, well, it seems to me like the biggest questions that we're asking is what do we want to manifest? What do we want our society to look like? Well, it looks like we want to be survivalists in a post-apocalyptic wasteland ruled by Iron Man. Like, that seems to be it. And we're certainly voting that way. We're certainly putting our money where our mouth is, right? We're certainly supporting all of this. Like, if we didn't want it, we wouldn't do it. And so the question becomes, why? Why do we want this? Why are we manifesting this reality? What is it that is actually making us collectively as a people manifest the destruction of our society? Because it's obviously what we're doing, and it's obviously what we want, right? If we didn't want it, we wouldn't do it. And if we thought we should stop doing it, then we would do something about it. So that's the question, I think, that I'm going to start really pursuing and really spending a lot of time trying to answer. I don't have it at my fingertips. I only have sort of guesses. But there's got to be something inside of the human consciousness that is seeking the destruction of itself. And it looks like we're all in for it. And we clearly do not care about the next generation. We clearly do not care. Like, the only small mercy that it looks like we as a people are willing to give the next generation is that we're just not going to even have them. Like, we're just not even going to have those kids. We're just literally saying, like, nah, we're fine with this place becoming like a post-apocalyptic hell space full of sociopaths, psychopaths, nightmare vampires, crazed lunatics shooting rockets into space, narcissistic morons pretending like they're super geniuses and all this kind of stuff. We're completely fine with the world being configured in this way, but we're not going to let new people in because we know it's terrible. Like, we know, right? We're making it terrible on purpose. And how do we know that? Because we keep voting for it. And when we get fed up with it, what do? We vote for someone even worse on purpose. Like someone like Donald Trump, right? We're literally voting for like reprehensible game show hosts at this point. Like, if we didn't want it to be this way, we wouldn't be doing it, but we are. Why? And my solution, of course, and I've said it again and again, so you know what it is, if you don't want it to be that way, well, start organizing to shut down crucial infrastructure and surrounding the halls of power. And more and more and more and more and more and more and more, I'm starting to come to the conclusion that we're not getting people out because the left is so disorganized, or because we can't get together, or we can't figure ourselves out, or any of this kind of stuff. I think the harsh reality is that the majority of people want it to be this way. That they see the decline coming, they understand it's happening, and they're thinking in their head, excellent, we're doing it. That's it. Like, that's it. Like, what else could it be? Right? That when they say Slava Ukraine, they know it's a Nazi slogan. And the only thing they don't want you to do is point it out. Right? That's it. That they all know what they're doing. They're aware of it. They just don't want you to point out that it makes them shit. Because they know. But it ruins the game, right? It's like pointing out the game, right? You all lost the game just there, by the way, for all that fucking matters. I never really understood that. Right? I never really understood that. That when I was a kid, there was this thing of the game, right? Where the only time you lose the game is if you think about the game, right? So if you have like a meta understanding that there's this ongoing game, and then you understand that you're playing the game, that means that you just lost the game. And I never really understood it. I never got the appeal. Until recently, with all this fucking Ukraine shit. Because it turns out the game is that we're Nazis. But you're not supposed to know it. You're not supposed to be aware of it. Right? You're not supposed to think about it. And if you think about it, you lose. Right? So the only time you lose the game is if somebody stands up and says, hey, this is some fucking Nazi shit. Well, you lose. And that means you get cut out. That means you get shunted away. Because we know. We know we're doing Nazi shit over here. We're aware of it. You're just not supposed to talk about it. Right? First rule of Fight Club, don't talk about Fight Club. Right? Like, and more, I think that this is, like, true. Like, why else would we keep doing this? And so this idea, and I appreciate it, Demand Better, what you're saying. We need to take all oligarchs' wealth and use it to solve the greatest issues of our time: climate crisis, poverty, privatization. Okay. The vast majority of people, and I think it's about as high as 80% at this point, disagree. That not only are they happy that there are oligarchs, they're happy that the oligarchs are using their wealth to destroy the place. I think this is what people want. Tell me I'm wrong. Like, tell me I'm wrong. So at this stage in the game, like, we're just creating a space so that we can all actually talk about it with one another without getting canceled, without getting thrown out, so that we can bear witness, so that the next generation, to the degree that they exist, will actually be able to pull something out and be like, oh, here's a group of people who were actually talking about what was happening, openly and honestly, without, well, not without fear, but without reservation, without bullshitting. Like, we're destroying this place on purpose. We could not. It would be easy to do. We could not. Right? We could just choose not to. It would actually be easy to do. We just decide not to. Right? Why? Because we want to destroy the place. That's all we've ever done. That's all we've ever done. And I think the only question we genuinely need to be pursuing is why. What is it? And I think you got to dig fairly deep. I think we're going to have to dig really deep into the consciousness of humanity, and specifically Western humanity. Like, what is this self-destructive impulse, right? And we've all seen a person who's like this. Like, I know people who are just self-destructive, right? They want to be destructive. They want to destroy themselves. They want it. And it's obvious, right? That they're acting in a way that just makes you look at them and go like, you could just decide not to do that, right? Teenagers are like this, right? Very self-destructive. And so there is something inside, like we've seen it on an individual level. So our society seems to have gone the same route. Can we pull up? Can we do it? Yeah, we could. I just don't think we want to. Like, I really don't. Like, I think we want to hit rock bottom. Like for real. I think that's the path that we're on, and we know it, and we're looking forward to it. Tweet is called PM Trudeau in recent months under your quasi-liberal boot. Canada has become a symbol of civil rights violations. Yeah, get fucked, Justin. Owls and Richard Medhurst. I mean, what more could you want, right? What more could you want? All right, I'm going to read through the chat, then we're going to pick the number. I thought that Yeltsin liked Putin as a successor because they were both anti-communists who could prevent the return of the Soviet Union or the new communist country. Yeah, that's probably right. Like, analyzing a ruler is full of many facets, and you'll find that if you actually commit to doing it, it's usually very difficult. Like, especially if the ruler was any damn good, because like a ruler of a country is like an emblem of the country and is an emblem of humanity itself and that nation, but is also a person with their own desires, and so there's all of these conflicting desires and conflicting ideas that get manifest in this single individual ruler. So like Putin simultaneously wants to be a wealthy man, a wealthy man, but also a well-respected man. He wants to be thought of as a good ruler, and he also wants to do well by his citizens. So there's many different things that get wrapped up in it, right? And it's very rare, in fact, to find a ruler who very explicitly sees the subjects that they rule over with disdain. It doesn't not happen, and I'm sure many of you immediately thought of an example, because there has always been an example, obviously, right? And that's the example that you use. That one person who sees the people they preside over with disdain, right? Joffrey from Game of Thrones is like the fictional example. That person certainly exists. But they're usually the exception. When you actually look at rulers, most rulers actually do care about what goes on with their own citizens, right? But they also care about power and money for themselves. So and those two things can conflict. And what can tip over from the difference between a good ruler and a bad ruler is simply that when they're faced with the question of personal power, prestige, and wealth for themselves, or something good for their citizens, they choose themselves. And the question of to what degree is Putin doing that is still kind of on the table, if you ask me. Like, Putin's early career was very much about trying to become a Western kind of society, but that's no longer on the table for him. So it's he's an interesting figure to be in power at this moment. I'll bet the Croatian insult is on the rebel. I like that you put the dots around that. Out of curiosity, is Trudeau getting more popular because of Ukraine? Trudeau is not getting more popular because of Ukraine. The most recent polling data that I have seen shows that Trudeau's popularity is in decline. that his favorability has remained constant, but the people who don't like him more. Like that's what's increasing. So basically, the people who were on the fence about him seem to be, when they finally find their opinion, it comes into dislike. So, and I mean, that's actually quite common. Like, Canadians are extremely fickle, right? And honestly, I think as more people do find out, like, how shitty these people are, like, I know I just had a bit of a rant there that, like, we want to decline, but I do think that some of it is, like, we don't really realize how bad it's gotten. What I don't like is Medhurst and Aaron Matei saying Russia violated international law and break rules when entering Russia. Like, no, they didn't, but okay, disagree there. I mean, I got to be honest with you. I think that there's lots of people who know better, but understand that if they start acting as an apologist for Putin, and if you say something like he didn't break international law, you actually are, like, you are acting as an apologist for Putin, because we don't know if he did or didn't. Like, that's the truth. We don't actually know. It hasn't been decided, right? That's a question for the international courts to actually ask and answer, right? So we don't know. And if you take the position that Russia didn't break international law, then you are, in fact, and not as an insult, I'm not saying this to denigrate you or to take you down, but that is the position that you're taking. You are acting as an apologist for Putin. And I think that there are a lot of people in the conversation who probably do know better and are still saying Russia violated international law, he did this kind of stuff, and he acted in this way, and he's a tyrant, and he's brutal, and all this kind of stuff, because they know if they don't, they'll be excluded from the conversation as a default. Like, I got a Bernie Sanders video here where he's talking about the situation in Ukraine and calling for de-escalation. He's using, his argument is the Monroe Doctrine argument, that the NATO encroachment argument. And the entire time he's talking, he's saying that Putin is a tyrant and he's this and that and he broke international law and all this. However, we need to remember that. And I really think that there are lots of people, and I think Matei is like this too. I don't know about Medhurst, but they don't want to get excluded from the conversation, right? And at this stage in the game, what we're seeing right now, you can get excluded from the conversation, right? Is this the new third world movement? Oh, geez, you guys are all picking the numbers. Okay, let me get there. Oh my God. Some famous YouTubers have fled to Georgia. I'm sick of NATO dogs pretending that Europe and America are passive. Yeah, right. Like, I mean, that's a joke, right? Yeah, let China and Russia park their navies and hypersonic nukes around America and Europe. Yeah, like, what was the Cuban Missile Crisis all about then, right? If I remember correctly, I think 2008 was the last time Putin said he would run. I don't think he's running for 2024. So a Russia without Putin would be quite interesting to see where it goes. It's true. There are possible pivot moments. You need to find the academic papers I once read which explains how Russia isn't a liberal democracy, and it has to do with the USSR and how the USSR reformed the Russian identity. Well, I mean, it never was, right? Like, that's it. It literally was run by SARS, and then it had the communist period after the SARS, and now it's got this period, and this isn't a liberal democracy either. So it just never was, right? And big question marks about whether it ever could be. Like, I do think that the Soviet Union had a democratic structure to a degree, but it wasn't the parliamentary democracies that we have in the West. Would be really nice to get a 2K UBI right now. I'm only walking, talking the bus, gas expense. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Like, the NDP aren't digging in their heels and trying to do anything about that. You guys are all going to have really, really nice, really nice teeth while sleeping in the park, right? That's what it is. I recommend you guys check out the figure Cao Cao from the Three Kingdoms period of China's history, made famous by Dynasty Wars. That's basically Putin here. Oh yeah, okay. Don't forget Maha. Oh, man. You're writing that major. You're writing this just to make me say it. I know it. Vajiralongkorn. That's not so bad. I'll give myself a B, I think. Thoughts on M. Night Shyamalan? Honestly, dude, M. Night Shyamalan, he had one moment that everybody cared about, which was the twist at the end of I See Dead People, right? You know what I'm talking about. The Sixth Sense, and what he did to Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action movie, just an insult. An insult to the fans, an insult to the characters, an insult to the actors, an insult to the studio, an insult to creativity and the arts itself. That if I was a god of theater, if I was Dionysus, who Dionysus would certainly be the god of film and television, right? Like film of theater, god of theater, god of film and television, it flows perfectly, right? Also, incidentally, the god of wine. So thank you, Dionysus. You rule. If I was Dionysus, I would just spit Shyamalan right out of my mouth for what he did. Like, literally renamed the main character, right? The name of the main character is Aang. Incidentally, Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the greatest stories ever told. And I don't mean in the modern period. I mean one of the greatest stories ever told. And I will fight for that. That is a hill that I will die on. And M. Night Shyamalan took that, and don't get me wrong, he had a task ahead of him, like take a 3-season story and try and get it into like a 2.5, 3-hour movie. That's a task. But he literally changed the name of the main character, Aang, to Ong. You're done. Like, you're done. You don't care about the source material. You don't care about any of this. Like, you're just doing stuff to try to pretend to be clever when the reality is what everybody wanted you to do was tell the story. Like, that's it. Like, Zuko's arc in Avatar: The Last Airbender makes him one of the great... Like, he is a Shakespearean-level character. That arc that he goes on and the change that he goes through is literally what storytelling is about. That if you are looking... When people say, what's the arc of your character? They're talking about Zuko. Like, brilliantly done. The way they did it, and the way they moved it through, and the rising and the falling and the rising, and for M. Night Shyamalan to be given the honor, the absolute honor of handling that subject matter, and it would be different if he was incapable of doing it, right? Like, that would be different. That would be understandable. To be given something so precious and so powerful, and to mishandle it, you almost expect that, right? Like if he had done it and you had to be like, oh, I guess, right? That would be fine, right? That a respectable try. But it's very obvious that he didn't care from the outset. That he thought that it was trash, right? And it ruined his career, and it should have. I don't think he's a decent storyteller. I don't think he cares about the art. I think he's a cynical actor who manages to get his stuff produced, and he does everything he does for money. I don't think he's clever. I don't think he's creative. I don't think he's interesting. And when he's given the opportunity to actually be interesting and do something powerful, he pisses on it. So M. Night Shyamalan, not interested. 0%. I wonder if one of the reasons for this is that the NDP is essentially broke. Oh, yeah, there's that. On that note, we should not demand something like this old CFF to replace the NDP. I mean, look, until we can actually come out and show power in the streets, none of this is going to matter. That, like, what shifted the dialogue here in Canada on climate change was the climate change protests, right? Here in Toronto, we had 100,000 people in the streets, right? Justin Trudeau was out on the streets with his, like, people were taking pictures of him, and everybody was like, hey, aren't you the Prime Minister, right? So until we are actually on the streets demanding an end to this madness, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where we funnel our energy, right? Doesn't matter. They're not going to respond, right? Because that's not a threat to them. Oh, yeah. Psychopath Nation, you got it, bud. Give me let me catch up with the chat here, okay? What the masses really want is nuclear war. Well, if you listen to somebody like Adam Something, that's what he's arguing for. Maslow's hierarchy has self-actualized at the top, but the other big human impulse is self-annihilation. I mean, there is something to that. The French call it the call to the void, right? The call to the void is like when you get a car drive by you, there's like a little part of you that's like, I could just jump in front of that, right? And it's part of the death impulse that we do kind of march towards death as a people. And so there is this kind of desire of just like, and you can see it manifesting in the millennials as well. Like the millennials have turned suicide into a punchline, right? Like we joke about suicide and we joke about that kind of thing. Like you can see that in a movie like Office Space, which was ahead of its time, where one of the characters gets hit by a truck. He gets hit by a car, and it incapacitates him, and then he's a cripple in a wheelchair, and he doesn't have to go to work, and everybody goes, lucky bastard. You're like, dude, the guy's like had all his bones shattered, and they're like, yeah, fucking I wish, you know? So it's part of what we are and what we're doing. Okay, here we go. We're doing today's number. We got an 8. We got a 3. Another 8. Another 8.
Here we go.
Tons
for
of
today's
8s,
number.
Some 2s, a 4.
It's March 23.
I'm going with a 1.
2022.
Going with a 1.
10 balls.
10 balls.
Each ball has a number.
Hey, David, how you doing, bud?
Numbers 1 through 10.
Here we go. I feel it is going to be an 8, though.
Swirl the numbers.
There's too many 8s in chat. You know? I feel like the energy has come that way.
Pick a number.
Pick a number. Oh, he's messing with it a lot. It's an 8, guys.
Today's number is 3.
Grinning guys. At least we hit it. Grinning guys, you're the guy. You go find that welder woman and you ask her out, Grinning. I have to believe that there's someone in your life who is wearing that welder's mask, and you keep thinking about her. You go ask her out. I've been saying for years now that people won't change until something dramatic event forces them to see reality. Yeah, as long as it's other people that get thrown into the streets, right? The only conversation I haven't been excluded from this one here. Yeah. I saw the Avatar movie in theater. You paid money for it? Bro. I would be so upset, dude, if I paid money for it. Yeah, exactly, Famita. Zuko's character development is impeccable, right? It is. It's brilliant. Because it captures his growth not only as a human being, but also as not only as as a person, but that he's growing up as like he starts very young and he becomes a young man. So it's like a coming of age story meets like the finding of the self. And his journey with Uncle Iroh is so brilliant. Spit Shyamalan out of his mouth. Very chapter 3, Book of Revelations. You should open more tabs? No, I think I'm okay, bud. I think I'm okay. I might open one more, just to get to the map. Life would be tragic if it weren't funny, yeah. I saw an Are You Winning Son suicide meme. Yeah, of course. Anti-natalists or borderline fascists. I like Unbreakable. Well, his early work, like Shyamalan's early work was actually okay, right? Like Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, right? His pacing was a bit slow, but I think he wanted it to be that way, so it was on purpose. But then I think he just gets into the studio system and it's just like, whatever. Yeah, screw Lynch. I'm a wiener. I converted you to welding. I'm a welder, but I'm a dude who digs chicks. It's tough. It's tough, eh? Right? You see, there's so many different parts of it. Okay. So, we had a request for it, so I'm going to play it. yourself out for dollar bills. Kill your children for a few cheap thrills. You got a problem, well that's too bad. You're too tired to see you've been had, yeah. Workers starve while we drop bombs. No such thing as right or wrong. We'll call you lazy while you work to death. You gotta earn yourself a moment of rest. And I won't work for a psychopath nation. Yeah, I won't work for a psychopath nation. Burn those corpses so you can speed. Buy that garbage you don't need. We'll play the victim while you lose your grip. Why won't they work in the apocalypse? Yeah, retreat into your stupid lies. You act confused while your children cry. You promise change but act the same. Gaslight, deflect, and take no blame. And I won't work for a psychopath nation. Yeah, I won't work for a psychopath nation. As we collapse into the devil's lap, as we watch the world burn to ash, you'll whine like bitches on your way to the grave. Why won't those serfs just behave? Yeah, you fucking vampires, demons, and ghouls. We're done with being treated like fools. The curse is lifted, we're freed from your spell. Keep on crying while you burn in hell, 'cause we won't work for a psychopath nation. Yeah, we won't work for a psychopath nation. Yeah, we won't work for a psychopath nation. That one goes out to Madeleine Albright. Get fucked, Madeleine. Say hi to the devil. Von Schweringer. I don't think I've ever seen you around here, but it's an inside joke, bud. It's an inside joke. We got someone in here who's into welder women. Thanks, pissed off, bud. I'm glad you like that one, bud. Patrick Lancaster is demonstrating how wrong the narrative of the West. In one of his videos, he talks about the Z comes from, which is essentially civilians supporting Russian. Putin ran with it. Yeah. No, that's the history of the Z, right? Like, anybody who's trying to pretend like the Z is the same as the Nazi swastika is out of their fucking mind. Like, it is. Like, it's what would be a closer analogy would be, you know what? This is almost right, but without the conspiracy connotations, which is, it's like the Q, right? Like the Q that came up in the Republican Party, right? That like people started showing up with the Q. And so Trump saw that there was a bunch of Q people, and so he just started to do Q things to get their support and to kind of get them in as fans. And then they loved it, and so he just kind of kept doing it, right? And so that narrative is closer to what happened with the Z. That people started showing up with the Z. Z was short for victory. Putin saw a bunch of Zs, and he was just like, Z. And it really, unlike the Q, which I think had its moment and then kind of fell because it's very entrenched in conspiracy, the Z has really propelled into a whole other stratosphere and will become, and has become and will become part of the larger Russian narrative. That, like, the Z, like, you're gonna see pictures of Putin wearing the Z in the future. And he'll become associated with that, the idea of victory and Russia overcoming these odds and that kind of stuff. That will become part of their national identity. But the idea that it has any like swastika-based connotations, I think you got to be in crazy town. Like you got to be one of the Q crowd or one of the like Russiagate kids to really think that that's accurate at all. You're in Pennsylvania? Good to see you, man. So glad that you're here, man. Like it's what a wild world we live in, right? What a wild fucking world we live in. You know what, man? It's in the back of my head. I've been thinking about playing this one, so I'm just gonna do it. I don't know why. I don't think I need to even find it. I know the words. Another month inside this car. The wage they pay me with don't get me very far. The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. Another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tied before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts. This year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold, and human sacrifice don't stop you being old. At least you'll die before the bomb you said explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told. This year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. Yeah! That one's for you too, Madeline. Get fucked. I show up, you play my favorite song. It's a sign. Yeah, that's right. That's right, David. The energy. I am really looking forward to seeing a lot of these motherfuckers die. I gotta tell you. I gotta tell you. That last verse was for fucking Madeline. You fucking bitch. I'm glad you're dead. You fucking worthless. And this is what's great, man. What any of these fucking... Thank you, Famita. I appreciate that. All of these fucking Westerners being like, Putin's a demon and he's doing all this kind of stuff. You're fucking voting for the most sociopathic leaders ever. Like George Bush, George W. Bush, fucking Clinton, Obama. Like, these guys are monsters. Like, they're nightmare monsters, the shit that they have done. Right? Yeah, what a mess they've left us with. Oof, for sure. It would be kind of nice, man. Like, this is one thing I think about all the time. I think the thing that makes this hard, what we're doing here, is, yeah, thank you. What makes it hard is that we're not even trying to make it better. Like, that's what makes it hard, right? Like, if we were trying to make it better, and even if we were trying to make it better and failing, I think we'd all feel a lot better about it, right? That, yeah, we bitch because we bitch, like humans bitch. But it definitely would, like, we would be taking on this kind of sense of, like, you know, we're trying as hard as we can, and we're doing the best that we can, and we're trying to improve. And even if we were falling back, we would be like, but we're trying, and that just indicates how difficult the issue is. But we're not even trying. And what's so fucking irritating about the conversation is that there are genuinely people in the conversation who are like walking up to the fire. There's like a fire, and you're like, oh, we got to put out the fire. And they're walking up being like, hey, we got the water. All you got to do is vote for us, and we'll pour this water all over the fire. And we all go, yeah, that's better than the guy standing there saying there is no fire at all. Right? This guy's saying there is a fire. And then he's going to take that water and he's going to pour it on the fire. And then they go, great, vote for me. And so we all do. And he goes, great. And then he throws the water on the fire, and it turns out that the water was gas all along. That's what this feels like right now. That's exactly how I feel. And like, even if the guy had taken his water and thrown it on the fire and had to just like hit it and not put out the fire, at least we could have all said, yeah, we did it. Like, we voted for the guy who wanted to put out the fire. He tried it. It didn't quite work. But let's just keep throwing water on it, and he's going to keep throwing water on it. It'll be great. But instead of that, when he threw the water on the fire, it was fucking gas. And then the people who supported him, the people who are still supporting him, are like, he's going to throw water on that fire any day. Sure, he threw gas on it the first time, but now he's going to do water for sure. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, when you suggest the idea of making it better, you get a called a commie and a loser. Exactly. Hey, maybe we should improve things slightly. That sounds like commie talk to me. That's another big reason why I just started calling myself a communist, right? I just got tired of people saying that I was a communist. Like, I would say, like, hey, maybe we should improve things. Maybe things should get better, don't you think? Maybe we should, I don't know, make it so that people can't even be homeless. Maybe we should make it so that food is something of a guarantee for the citizens of our nation, right? And I would even try to say it as like, hey, you know what would be a great thing to do as like a national security position? Maybe make sure everyone has access to food and shelter. And they would just say, sounds like commie talk to me. And so eventually I just started saying, yeah, okay. See, it's fine. Right? And then I started doing research on communism. And when people started to say that to me, I said, okay, what do you know about communism? And then they would just start saying the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my fucking life. And that's when I really realized, like, oh, this is just a slogan. Like, you don't actually know anything about communism. And then occasionally I would encounter somebody who would know something about communism, but it became very obvious pretty quickly that the family that they were talking about, that Stalin did bad things to, were Nazis. Maybe I should change this to Commie Talk, right? Change the title of the program from Capitalism is a Death Cult to, hey, this is John Sanderson here with Commie Talk. How you doing today, fellow comrades? I'm here today to talk about communism. Can you imagine if I started talking like that, seriously? Just started talking like this every single day. Hey, welcome. This is KA53, the FM radio. Here playing you the hits, the oldies, the newbies, and everything in between. Here on John Radio, Jon Radio. John Radio. Shoot a rich man into space, you gotta get ahead of the human race, but we're the lazy ones working at the end of your nukes and your guns, and we don't even care. Bring on the doom, light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. God let his chosen ones wander forever in the burning sun, and 10 times worse the fate for us. Forget him, worship the dust, 'cause we don't even care. Bring on the doom. Light of this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. Baptize us with rising tides, never let us see what hides inside, and cover our sins with dollar signs. The fire will burn away our pride, and you could have done anything at all. You could have done anything at all. You could have done anything at all, and you chose this. We don't even care. Bring on the doom. Light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. We don't even care. Bring on the doom. Light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. Yeah, we'll be going soon. You find a bottle of water and you go chug it in the hot sun and it was vodka all along? Yeah, at least then you'd be drunk. I know someone who claimed Marx was a dictator. I don't like that communism because that Karl Marx, everything he did was terrible. He was a terrible dictator. Horrible atrocities happened under the dictator Karl Marx. We should appropriate the private property of all these Marxist corporations. That's right, Gino. That's right. The communist Joe Biden. The communist Joe Biden. We got to stop communism. Right? And if we've got to nationalize this whole place to stop communism, then god damn it, we will. I'm going to play some of the songs that I haven't played in a long time. This says Capo 5. I feel like that's wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway. I haven't played this song in forever, so this is going to be a disaster. Oh, there they are. Jeez. Have a good one, Vaughn. Harvest the bones from your loved one's grave. Brew up the dark elixir. Pour out their souls to infernal machines, burning their souls to go quicker. What happened to Lipton? You're embarrassing me with stupidity. What happened to Lipton? I'm not gonna go down quietly. And when they flee from your machines in clouds of black exhaust, they'll find their vengeance in the skies to bounce out what they've lost. What happened to Litton? You embarrass me with stupidity. What happened to Litton? I'm not gonna go down quietly. Quietly, the grave past time so silently. Why wake us from our peaceful sleep? We'll see you'll join us in the deep. What happened to Lipton? You're embarrassing me with stupidity. What happened to Lipton? I'm not gonna go down quietly. Let the dead sleep. Let the dead sleep. Let the dead sleep. sleep, let them sleep. That one needs like an organ. That one needs an organ. I think the weakness of the song is not me. And I don't think it's the guitar. I think it's I don't have the right instrument. Like I need to be able to like turn and have an organ here, and then play an organ and sing that song. That's what that song needs. I'm even gonna write it. I'm even gonna write down organ. It needs it. It needs it. Well, to be fair, Mikhail Bakunin did make that claim about Marx. Of course, Bakunin was a tyrant in all the organizations he ran. I mean, bit of projection then. Bit of projection. Looking fresh, brother. Love the heart and soul you put in that song. Thanks, Ad Gooch, but I appreciate that. I do. I appreciate that. We're having a bit of a music break right now. I'm in the mood. I'm in the mood for music. I'm in the mood for love. I think I want to do one more. It's going to be one of the quieter ones, I think. Maybe I'll do two more. You know what? I am going to do two more. I'm going to do I'm Sad. I've been wanting to play I'm Sad. I've been resisting it for a long time. And I don't know why. I don't know why I've been resisting playing this one. I've had the feeling to play this one for a while. I went through a pretty big depression over the Ukraine war, and I wanted to play this song, but I don't know, maybe it felt a little too on the nose. But maybe that's isn't it supposed to be on the nose, right? Anyway. Pretending we'll go back to before. Psychopath nation shatter hard upon the floor. Dumb politicians trick us all with stupid grins. They'll run for cover while we pay for their sins. I'm sad. We burn the whole world down. I'm sad. Everybody let us down. Just keep on working, pay no attention to the smoke. Just keep on working, nobody cares if you're still broke. Just keep on working, come on, what is wrong with you? Just keep on working, try not to think about the truth. And I'm sad, everybody let us down. I'm sad. We burn the whole world down. God has no mercy for those who kill themselves. Laughs at us loudly as we build a perfect hell. Tear down the gardens replaced with empty stone. Run to your bunkers built with our blood and bones. I'm sad. Everybody let us down. I'm sad. We burn the whole world down. There's no forgiveness for us at all. There's no forgiveness for us at all. Gino, is that a joke? The name of that song is I'm Sad. It's in the title. Everything you've heard is my stuff. This is all me. This is all me. I only play a couple of covers. One of them is Britney Spears' Hit Me Baby One More Time. I will also play Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun from time to time, and Nirvana's Where Did You Sleep Last Night? And then, oh yeah, why am I flipping over? I know this piece. There it is. Apparently Norton is working in the background. Good to know. Good to know. Also, a good opportunity to say, hey, give me some money. Well, you know, if you care. Oh, you know, I want this capoed on 3. All right, this will be the last one, and we'll move on. Got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm grown? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I thought, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point of feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes to sweep me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice when everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica And I still believe that we can do it. Even now. Even as we hurl ourselves pointlessly to another goddamn war, to another crisis, to another disaster of our own making, I still believe it. Because our participation in the act is so easy and insignificant and small. The earth was a garden before we even got here. It took lots of effort, lots of time, lots of determination for us to ruin it. And if we were not here, the earth would simply return to the garden it once was. As if by a miracle. We don't need to invent something. We don't need to transition to something. We don't need to create. We don't need to think about it. We don't need to do anything. Quite the opposite. That if we would like to be here and bear witness to the earth healing itself, then all we have to do is stop. I've become more and more convinced that when the capitalists talk about transitioning to a green economy, what they fundamentally mean is ensuring that we don't commit suicide while maintaining our power. That they're scrambling around trying to find a way to keep themselves inserted as the worthless middlemen that they are, or what they like to call the investors, these pointless, worthless, pathetic middlemen who achieve less than nothing, who are a drain on the society, the culture, and on humanity itself, who are holding us back in significant ways. And when they talk about transitioning to a green economy, what they mean is that they want to negotiate with the sun so that they can stay as kings while we do all the work and they do absolutely nothing of consequence. Can you believe that Kim Kardashian said that people need to get off their ass and work? What a fucking bitch. Like, you've never worked a goddamn day in your life. Shut your fucking mouth, Kim Kardashian. You fucking worthless princess. I like the rare earth hypothesis because it highlights how important our world is. I mean, proof's in the pudding, right? Like, seems like it is rare, right? If it wasn't, there would be more, right? And I don't think it's much of a hypothesis. Like, we've looked, right? Like, it's not like we're not looking. Like, one of the great desires and wishes, I think, of your, like, Elon Musk crowd, right? The jet set to the stars kind of crowd. We would love to find another planet that could sustain life, that we could settle. We would love that. We'd be all about that. Like, but we can't, because there aren't that many of them. Yeah, the ruble is almost completely recovered, of course. No, it was never in significant threat, right? Like they gave it a little pap on the head to say to it, "Bad Putin, bad Putin. How dare you fight back? You should let us continue bombing people. How?" Yeah. I know I said that was going to be the last song, but I am going to play one more. I'm going to play one more. These times they are uncertain, of that there is no doubt. And nobody can tell me quite what it's all about. The heartbreak and the loneliness, the chaos and the fear will make even the strongest cry, "I wish my ma was here." A young man on a battlefield fights for a rich man's gold. The bullet cracks into his spine, he knows he won't grow old. And as the tears come streaming down, at once his mind goes clear. The war was fought for nothing, he cries, "I wish my ma was here." A lively story well in hand, a joke to soothe your soul. And when it came to arguing, she'd forgive and let it go. And when I cried, she held me, told me it's okay, my dear. And as we face these darkened days, I wish my ma was here. And as we march into the streets, as all the righteous do, we'll raise our voices to the skies, they cannot stop the truth. And as we tear their structures down, we'll raise a victory cheer. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Yeah, we made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Yeah, it does that to me too, bud. It does that to me too. And I think that song is a song that's gonna grow up with me. Because my mom, she's doing well. She's out in Manitoba, right? She's I don't get to see her that often, and so it has like a homesick kind of quality to me now. But I know there'll be a moment where she's gone. And it will just be me. That I'll be the old man in the conversation. Famita. Yeah, Famita. Yeah, when the Ukrainian war started, when these events happen, a song pops out, And for a while I was sort of expecting it. I was sort of looking around for it, and it didn't happen. And I just came to realize that's the song. That's the song. Because at the end of the day, for all of our gallivanting around the world and going to war and acting like big people and all of this, when push comes to shove, we figure out what really matters. And sometimes it's too late. Yeah, that comment, by the way, Famita, reminds me of this this meme that circulates where it's like an army, like a lieutenant, and his private is with him, and he like looks up and he's got his hat like covering his eyes, and he's like, it looks like it's raining today, and she looks up and it's like clear skies. She's like, it's not raining, and then she sees like tears coming down his face, and she goes, oh yes, it is raining after all. Yeah. Well, that's my goal, by the way, is to make all of you cry. That's it. If I can make you weep like babies, I've done it. I suck you in with like my grunge stuff, and then I get you with my feelings at the end. I create the revolutionary spirit, and then I have you weep. I love this. From the Beaverton. Backed into a corner, liberals make deal to follow through on some of their election promises. They're not going to do any of that shit, dude. We're going to get to 2025, and there's going to be an election, and everybody's going to be like, where's the dental care? It's the same story. They've only done it for fucking like 30 years. I just sit there fantasizing about John's mom. She would appreciate it, my friend, honestly. You can even put like a welder's mask on her if you like. She is a fine lady, and you would be so lucky. You'll always have your comrades. That's nice to hear, Famita. That's nice to hear. You know, I do have to admit that I always carry with me seeds of doubt. Part of being in the theater and part of living the nomadic life that I have lived means saying bye, saying farewell to people. I've known a lot of people in my life, and no one actually does stick around. I've gotten used to it. You know? And I don't know if that's good. I don't know if it's good for a person to expect to say farewell. Although I suppose we all do in the end. Anyway. This is getting a bit sentimental. Hey, did you guys know that 60% of Canadians worry about feeding their families amid inflation? This is from Ipsos. Surging inflation has a growing number of Canadians concerned. They won't be able to stretch their dollars far enough to keep food on the table, according to the latest polling from Ipsos. In a survey conducted exclusively for Global News, from March 11th to the 16th, Ipsos found that 6 in 10 Canadians say they are concerned they might not have enough money to feed their families. That figure is up 16 percentage points from a similar poll conducted in November, when the annual rate of inflation stood at 4.7%. That figure has since risen a full percentage point to 5.7%, according to the latest data from Statistics Canada. And economists say that with the ongoing war in Ukraine putting pressure on prices at the pump and in the grocery aisles, inflation likely hasn't peaked either. Daryl Bricker, CEO of Ipsos Public Affairs, tells Global News that the latest polling represents a dramatic transformation of Canadians' top-of-mind concerns. As the pandemic winds down, wider concerns such as climate change and healthcare are falling down the rankings as eroding affordability rises to the top. What we are now seeing is an agenda that's very much dominated by really urgent economic issues, principally the cost of living. Concerns about putting food on the table are highest among families with kids, with 68% of parents indicating they were concerned. 68%. More than 60% of those surveys between the ages of 18 to 54 say they were worried about feeding their families, while the number drops off for respondents older than that. Bricker says the generational divide reveals who's struggling most with the rising cost of living. It's people who are really stretched, younger people, people who are less affluent, people with kids at home. That's who's really struggling here, he says. Younger Canadians who are hoping to start families and potentially break into Canada's increasingly out-of-reach housing market are the ones likely to feel frustrated by the soaring cost of living, Bricker says, noting policymakers will have to contend with these sentiments at the polls. That frustration is going to find a way to boil so that it creates a difficult political environment for any government that's running for election. Beyond food, 85% of Canadians are concerned about inflation making everyday things less affordable. That's up 7% from November's poll. More than 2/3 of Canadians surveyed said they're worried about not being able to afford gasoline. Though a recent Ipsos poll for Global News also shows broad support for sanctions against Russia during the war in Ukraine, Canadians did hint that in the survey that the domestic economic impacts of the conflict were a concern. Bricker says that while the initial response to the plight of Ukraine is to provide immediate relief, support for ongoing action may wane the longer the war stretches and the higher prices go up as a result. What we're going to see is people's focus is going to get closer to home and less on what's going on in places like Ukraine. That tends to be the pattern, he says. Inflation anxiety is not evenly spread across the country either. Some 71% of respondents from Saskatchewan and Manitoba, as well as 69% from Atlantic Canada. Meanwhile, they were lowest in the West, 51% in British Columbia, although that's still 50% of the society. But with most economists expecting additional hike rates throughout the year, 73% of Canadians say they're concerned interest rates will rise too quickly for them to keep up. Despite the worries, some Canadians feel they can absorb the hit from inflation, while others remain at a breaking point. Nearly 1 in 4 respondents say they're completely out of money and can't pay more for their necessities. These figures remain on par with data from November. 11% say they can easily absorb increased costs, down 2%. Some 37% they can handle the inflation pressure with some adjustments to their spending. These figures are up to 2% from November. Ipsos says in total 52% of respondents are struggling and say they can't afford rapid inflation. These figures remain steady. The thing that struck me about this article was this line, where this is surging and climate change concerns are down. As the pandemic winds down, wider concerns such as climate change and healthcare are falling down the rankings as eroding affordability rises to the top. This is all one problem. And that problem is capitalism. That climate change, healthcare, affordability, all of these things are all tied up in one little knot, right? I've said it before. If all of our problems were a Venn diagram, smack dab right in the middle of that Venn diagram would be billionaires, the oligarchs. And how do we know that they are not only contributing to this, but driving these issues? They're making more money than they ever have. Every report that is coming out is saying that, 60% of Canadians are struggling with inflation. 60% worry that they cannot pay their bills. I'll get to it, Eric. 60% are saying that they're struggling with all of this. All of these corporations are making more money than they ever have before. If these corporations were even stagnating, we could take seriously the idea that the issue is not the structure of capital. But these psychopaths are seeing a crisis and a disaster and are exploiting us in favor of their own personal gain and their own personal profit. The structure is designed to fail. The structure is designed to extract and then abandon, which is exactly what it's going to do. And how do we know? Because that's all it's ever done. We have to surround the halls of power We have to let these guys know and let our political establishment know that the goal is not to get an increase in dental coverage. The goal is to eliminate from the discourse the existence of these capitalists. That they are not only worthless, they are harmful. And we know it. And you'll never ever see that in the national discourse. Why? Because leftists don't get a seat at the table. So if we're not going to get a seat at the table, it's time to tip the table over. All right. Eric, you're saying you got a video here? Oh, yes. I've seen this video. Yeah, let's go. This is a great video.
On est en ligne avec Victoria. Vous êtes...
I want to be really clear about something, though. Like, this is being pitched as if it's like she goes off script or all this kind of stuff. The French are different than us, right? Like, when we say the West, we tend to include the French in this, right? The French are different than us. The French actually have leftists, right? That if you try to, like, attack the working class in France, cars get burnt down, right? There's this established revolutionary understanding that exists in France. Have neoliberals taken over there too? Do they have an oligarch class? Of course, right? Neoliberalism is everywhere, right? You can't avoid it. But they've been having to deal with actual leftists being actual leftists, right? Like there's no such leftist movement in North America. It simply doesn't exist. And so this isn't because I've seen several things now coming out of French media that tell me that this isn't like someone going off script and taking over like oopsie-doo. They know what she's going to say, and their opinion is, this is what some people say, so it needs to be heard. Because if it doesn't get heard, it will express itself on the streets. And in France, when they say express itself in the streets, they don't mean polite little signs. They don't mean friendly little things. They literally mean all the rich people's cars will be burnt. They literally mean all of the rich houses will have their windows smashed out. Like, and that's understood. And there's no conversation in France that like, what this kind of level of violence and property destruction is. I mean, sure, that probably happens. But it's not taken very seriously, frankly. Like, the conversation that we had after the George Floyd protests about property destruction, I thought was disgraceful across the board, right? Like, all of these, like, puffed up, like, white dudes, basically, and conservative types. You know, this property damage, you know what my response to that is? And I'll say it to their face. I'll say it again and again. If one cop executes one guy on the streets, we will burn this town down. And it's still not enough. Fuck your property. Fuck you for defending it. Like, get completely fucked. Yeah, French corporations are not divesting from Russia. Yeah. No, I mean, I think they have a, like, because the people actually have a voice.
Ukrainienne, vous avez vécu 25 ans là-bas et je crois comprendre que vous êtes en contact avec votre famille.
I know some of you are just listening to this, so I'm going to. Well, and you know, Amanda, it's like I tell this story all the time, right? Like there's this First Nations reserve where I grew up, Portage Prairie, Manitoba. There's in fact 5 First Nations reserves around Portage Prairie, Manitoba, and I lived in the country, and so we would drive through one of them. It was the shortest way to get to my school, right? We drove to school every day. And there was one house, right? And we drove by it, and one day there was a hole blown in the side of the house, right? And I'm a kid, I don't know. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on, right? And then my dad says, oh yeah, and the government will give them another one, and he'll just do it again. Right? And I always was like, how? And it always came down, and everybody around me said it. Oh, they just don't respect property, and if the government's going to give them another one again, then why bother taking care of it, right? If it's free anyway, you might as well destroy it, right? And that was sort of the dismissive way. And of course, then I learn about the 60s scoop, right? You learn about these kids that were kidnapped and thrown into what we call residential schools, but prisons, right? How we attempted to scrub away their legacy, scrub away their culture, right? And I've come to conclude that anybody who goes through that, where the government and the Catholic Church kidnaps your children, or you are kidnapped away from your family, you're goddamn right I'm going to get a free house. You're goddamn right we're going to give a free house to that person. And when they burn it to the ground, we're going to give them another one. And when they blow that one apart, we're going to give them another one. And when they blow that one up, we're going to give them another one. And when they burn that one down, you know what we're going to do? Golly gee and mercy me, goodness, would you believe it? We're going to give him another one. And if he burns every single one down until the day he finally dies, it still won't be enough. We will never balance those scales. And if they want to destroy every single thing we give them, we should watch them do it and understand why what they're doing is right. And then give them another one. Don't kidnap children from their house. How about that? Real straightforward. Don't execute men in the streets. Real straightforward. And if you're crying like a baby because some windows got broken after you fucking murdered a man in the streets, maybe you're a Nazi. Like, maybe you're a fucking loser Nazi. Just putting it out there. Maybe have a good look in the mirror. Right? All right. Because I know some of you are listening to this. This is all in French, so I'm going to read this out because it's subtitled. We're here with Victoria. You're Ukrainian. You've lived there for 25 years. We know that you've been in contact with your family in Kiev. Have they escaped from Kiev? Of course not. They never thought about fleeing. Tell us about the situation with your family. I came back to France from Ukraine 4 days ago. Nobody believed there would be a war. But a lot of rumors were causing people to leave. The root of this conflict was already starting to show in 2014. At least 2 million Ukrainians are living day to day in terrible conditions. This year's heating bills are greater than before, yet wages are so low. People here spend half their monthly wages on heating costs. Life is indeed difficult here. I was just thinking, why should we defend this puppet president and government? I'm talking about the president we have now, not the one Putin might be planning on installing. So you're saying right now, people on the internet are saying Ukrainians are in a difficult position. That's indeed true. The government is changing nonstop. The economy is tanking. Corruption is everywhere. Are you talking about Zelensky? Of course, who else? So you're saying the democratically elected Zelensky is actually a puppet leader? Yes, and he is by no means a democratic leader. He's banned 4 opposition TV channels. There were also journalists who mysteriously disappeared. People say that Russian journalists are constantly killed, but Ukrainian journalists are killed as well. A lot of journalists have been killed these past few years. It's complicated. It's just that nobody talks about it. It makes no difference. So according to what you've said, as a Ukrainian who's lived in both France and Ukraine, do you think the West idealizes Ukraine too much? The West believes Russians are evil, while Ukraine is a wholesome democracy. But are things not this simple? It's not that simple. It's definitely not that black and white. Other guests voice their disbelief. Wait, let me ask you something. Your relatives in Ukraine must be in a difficult position. Are they preparing to flee in the face of the Russian attack? No, they're still in Kiev. They're just not going to the office today. This is the first time I've heard someone call a democratic country a puppet government, arguing. I've heard that some people in Kiev, not Donbass, at Kiev, some people are happy about the Russian invasion. Is this correct? Absolutely. And about our supposedly democratic government. Many Ukrainians are suspicious about the validity of the election. Do you get it? The situation is complicated. I'd still like you to elaborate. It's true that the current government isn't perfect. Maybe some journalists were indeed assassinated. Here's the Nazi equivocation. But journalists are assassinated in other countries too, like in Bulgaria. But you can't say that because of this, they aren't democratic. Maybe the country's judicial system is flawed, but you can't, arguing. People tonight have strong feelings on the topic. Many people have died in Ukraine, and in Donbass, and in other regions. See, they're even bringing up Donbass. How about that? So some of what you may hear, Ukraine's system is failing. The government is corrupt. Journalists are being killed. It's easy to be passionate. I will not support this government. Just look at the economy, at the standard of living. Like the other guest said, if Ukrainians aren't satisfied with the government, they can use the democratic methods to exchange. You can't be like Russia and just invade. Don't forget that in February 2014, there was a coup d'etat that overthrew the democratically elected president. That was said by another guest, no less. Like, can you imagine that kind of discourse happening on American television? What did it take me to? What did it take me to? What am I even watching? Now I'm immediately taken to a live stream. Oh, this is a gamer that I pay attention to occasionally. That's fun. That's nice. YouTube trying to tell me, like, John, you need to relax, bud. You need to relax. It's probably true. I'd like to think if there's nuclear Armageddon, France will sneak one off on London. Yeah, the Paris Commune, exactly, Mock. Like, France has a history of this kind of stuff. I mean, for God's sakes, when, like, we talk about the guillotine, right? The French Revolution and all of that. France was not unique, certainly, but like the French Revolution with the guillotines and all that kind of stuff, like, that's not how it went down everywhere else, right? Like, lots of places had a gradual shifting of power through parliamentary politics, right? That, like, take Britain is a great example, right? The monarchy is still there. It just steadily got whittled away. That the merchants and manufacturers, i.e. the capitalists, became more powerful than the monarch and the monarchy, and steadily was able to whittle away actual authority in the society in meaningful ways. The French were just like, fuck that. Get fucked. Right? Like, they certainly have this idea of incremental reformism, but not to the degree that we do in the West. Right? Most beautiful, meaningful song I've ever heard. Respect for that. Wish more could hear. Oh, isn't that nice, Gooch? That's a beautiful thing you just said, my friend. I'm so happy. Tell people I exist. That's how you can pay me back, bud. Tell people I exist. Get people into the live stream. Have people ask to hear the song. I'll happily play it. Let people know I exist. That's, I think, the best payment I could ever receive. Maurice Thorez was Stalin's supported deputy minister, president of France. Oh, yeah. Like, yeah, the French have just... I think that when we talk about freedom of speech, we're totally bullshit. Like, we don't actually buy into that stuff, right? We just say it. The French do it. Like, they're no one's gonna get like chased off the news for that interview in France, right? They can rebuild. They have insurance. You can't bring someone back from being publicly executed. Yeah, the amount of generational trauma for sure. Do what Jesus did. Chase the moneylenders out of the temple, and the temple is our lives. I mean, you know what happened to Jesus, though, Content. That's why we have to resurrect it, right? History to liberals like garlic to vampires. Yeah, exactly. Like that's why the liberals keep saying it's the end of history, right? So, because if it's the end of history, then you don't need to know anything about history. Yeah, we can't ever truly reconcile the destruction we caused indigenous peoples. That's absolutely the truth, Famita. Like that's the hard truth. There is no rebuilding anything. Like, it's already gone. And now I think what it's about more than anything is truth and reconciliation. That truth and reconciliation is what it is about. And I can't express to you how important it is that when I was growing up, everyone around me, everyone, dismissed First Nations people. Lazy, drunk, destructive. They don't care about doing work or any of that kind of stuff. And that was that's the liberal consensus in a place like Manitoba. And it stems largely from ignorance. Like, nobody knew about the 60s scoop, right? They didn't know. And if you don't know, then you reach for reasons. And of course, if you're a shitty person anyway, because you're fucking conservative, you come up with the shittiest possible explanation. And if you're in this individual place where there's individualism, individualizes your individuality, right? And you don't care about issues like systemic anything, then you can believe what you like. And Truth and Reconciliation says, yeah, we can't reconcile or solve it. We can never give them the culture back. We can never give them the societies they had back. That's outside of what is possible. But we can tell the truth about what we're seeing and what has happened. And when we see a First Nations person who is homeless and drunk on the streets, instead of just calling them the quote-unquote drunk Indian, we can understand that is a person experiencing a mass trauma. And there has been a cultural trauma that has been inflicted on the First Nations people. Like, there's no other way to describe it. Like, it's extremely traumatic. And the fallout from that trauma is always going to look incredibly messy. Incredibly messy. And all we can do is stop denigrating them and stop insisting that they get over it. You know? Like, literally the same year that the Beatles were touring around America, we were kidnapping children from their homes. And in a program that didn't end, and it never really ended, honestly. Like, the church simply got removed from it. The residential schools got shut down, the last of which were getting shut down the same year that Disney's Lion King was in theaters. Like, this is fresh. This is fresh. you just can't say get over it. Like, literally the people who experienced it are still alive. Right? It's like even more recent than slavery. I know that the Nazis here like to say, oh, slavery was so long ago, they should just get over it. Like, this is within not even living memory. The people who experienced it are still alive. So we have to say and be honest about what happened. And when you see the result of that, you have to understand what it is you're looking at. Like, the people who attempt to dismiss this are reprehensible. Truly reprehensible. Like, what do you think is going to happen? It would be like taking a baseball bat, smashing it into someone's leg, and then laughing because they're limping. Look, what do you think's going on there, buddy? Ah, they're just lazy, always limping around all the time. Capitalism and imperialism exact a toll on both classes. There's no way to balance the scales because some people suffered a physical injury and some people suffered a moral injury. The whole reparations balancing injuries discussion is hardly germane. Advocating for reparations is simply a way to try to make capitalism work better, not replace it with something positive. What do I care if First Nations become part of the oligarchy? They'll just end up abusing the rest of us like the white oligarchs. I mean, I do think there is something of a counter-argument to be said, and I don't know where I fall on this idea of reparations. But there is something to be said where it's like, you're putting your money where your mouth is. That you can tell the truth, right? You can acknowledge the way that liberals do. But if you're not going to put your money where your mouth is, we don't actually believe you. And actually now I just said it out loud, and I think I've made my mind up just now. Because liberals are good at this. Liberals are good at tilting their head and going, oh, that's so bad for you. I'm so sorry. Oh. And then walking away. Put your money where your mouth is. I don't believe Canadians at all. I don't believe these fucking liberals. Right? These head tilting, oh, poor baby. Fuck you. Put your money where your mouth is. Prove it. Show me how much you give a shit. If you're not willing to put in 1/10 of the amount of money that we spent to destroy them, you're a fucking loser. Like get out of here. I'm not interested in the conversation. Put your money where your mouth is. Prove it. Bulgaria isn't a democracy. It suffers all the same problems the US does. Ah, yeah. All capitalist liberal democracies fall for this, right? Because eventually the capitalists take control of the political system. Which, I mean, sort of assumes that I shouldn't say take control. They have control of the political system. That liberal democracies exist at the behest of capitalists, not the other way around. Right? And that's fundamentally what the Chinese are attempting to resolve. Right? That their system of government, the capitalists operate at the behest of it. And anytime a capitalist tries to get involved in the political system, they call it corruption. We call it lobbying. Yeah, Gino, I think you've nailed it, dude. They would have went to commercial break on US TV. No, that's not good, mate. You will find someone that isn't materialistic and will see the good in you. It expects me. You even worry about it. You've had a rough past. That's where it stays. Well, that's... Ad Gooch, you're saying all the beautiful stuff today. Look at you. Look at this guy. This guy came in today with an open heart and wanted to share some beautiful shit today. Ad Gooch. God damn, dude. That's just really nice to know that there's someone out in the world who's saying that kind of stuff. Not even just to me, bud, but just it's nice to know that there's someone out in the world that's saying that kind of stuff to anybody. That's beautiful. You're a beautiful person. Thank you so much for sharing, bud. A monument to the German communist and anti-Nazi Ernst Thälmann is being melted down to show EU solidarity with Ukrainian Nazis. Fuck. No fucking shit, eh? Like, come on. Like, come on, man. They're not even trying anymore. Like, they're not even trying. They might as well just start with the Nazi salutes, dude. Like, let's go. Let's just go. Let's get there, right? Let's just get there. Fuck. Like, No, liberals are really good at pretending, right? That's their whole shtick. They're really, really good at pretending. Yeah, we have recordings from the 20s and 30s of former slaves. Yeah, it's fucked up, man. Like, slavery is within living memory, right? Like, it's ridiculous. I'm 44 and I worked with people who attended residential schools in Inuvik. Those who were my age. One of the last residential schools to close in 1996. Yeah, absolutely wild. The monument stands on Ukrainian marble. It was designed by a Soviet sculptor. It's dedicated to a German who was loyal to Stalin. Then again, I'm no liberal. I want to see the situation never come up again, not keep the conditions that led to injury. Yeah, no shit. Yeah, dude, that's absolutely the truth. Like, can we not? Like, can we just not do that? Like, it seems like this is the thing that's so funny to me, is that we're always accused of being lazy, but man, it takes a lot of energy to blow these places up. Like, man, like, look how much fucking energy we're using to blow the shit out of this place. Yeah, woke up to Jen Zong being quarantined, so much for dissenting views. Yeah, dude, we've been talking about it. You can't say guillotine? Yeah. Well, and you got to be careful with that word, too. I actually prefer if we don't talk about that kind of stuff, because it just gives them an excuse, right? I know they're going to do what they can to undercut us like they did to Jen Zedong, right? But Jen Zedong was playing by the rules. Like, if you started talking that guillotine stuff in Jen Zedong, they would shut it down, right? Because they saw what happened to Chapo, right? That there was this big culture of, like, joking about that kind of stuff and saying that kind of stuff. And so they used it as an excuse to get rid of it. And so Jen Zedong was like, okay, we're not going to do any of that. And they're still quarantining them. The ban will come soon. The quarantine first. The ban is coming next. Yeah, or they just chant Nazi slogans in Parliament. Yeah. To be fair, it wasn't like an official thing. It wasn't everybody doing it. It was like some voices, and we don't really even know who was doing it. I went back and took a look at the footage because I think it's important to have a more accurate view of what was going on. And it wasn't like the whole parliament was like, Slava Ukraine, Slava Ukraine. It was just some assholes in the back. And I mean, if you can find a clip that proves me otherwise, I'd love to see it. Well, love to see it, but the indigenous people pushing reparations instead of decolonization are either, one, faking their indigeneity or self-hating. I don't think I can comment on that, honestly, Famita. I don't think I'm well positioned to comment on that. I think people are doing what they think is right, and see. I mean, I kind of agree with the spirit of what you're saying, which is that, like, reparations is kind of just like shooting them in the arm, right? Like giving them one in the arm, right? It isn't like a larger systemic uprooting, right? It isn't like a pulling out of the system in order to rectify it, right? It's just kind of giving them one. And from that perception, I understand the spirit of what you're saying. That instead of focusing on the larger, deeper issue that is at hand, they just want to get one on them. Yeah, I see where you're coming from there. Yeah, can you believe this? This is how weak these guys are. This is how you know that they're weak, right? They took Yuri Gagarin off the space monument. The first man into space. That's pathetic. That's pathetic. Like, that's not, like, you're a complete and total loser if you're doing that kind of stuff. The people who were responsible for doing that decision, for making that decision, for taking his name off of stuff, for rewriting it, for doing it. So if you put up the, I don't care if you're the janitor that put up the plaque. You're amongst the most pathetic people on the planet that the planet has ever seen. That is pathetic. Like, and it's pathetic even if you are like a hard right neo-Nazi. It's a human being that went to space. It's the first human that was in space. That if you have any love for humanity at all, you can understand that that was the first human being who ascended to the stars, who went into space. And it just so happened that he was a Russian. But because you're so pathetic, you can't see past this little fractional moment of time, this disagreement, and you are choosing to posthumously judge a man who is no longer alive based on the culture that he is currently not a part of, as a way to what? Get one over on Putin? You're a loser. Like, that's pathetic. Like, disgraceful. Like, disgraceful, not only just an insult, like, it's not even an insult to the Russians. That's the thing. Like, that's how pathetic it is that it's actually just an insult to the people who did it. Right? Like, it's an attempt at an insult, but anyone with any self-respect would look at it and be like, oh, you're gross. Like, that's pathetic. And, like, this, like, sniveling, snide little, yeah, your guy's not on our plaque anymore. Ugh. Like, fucking losers. As if the Russians don't have a monument themselves. Like, as if they're not going to be like, yeah, first guy into space, Russian. Like, as if they're not keeping track. Right? Like, it's so fucking beyond gross. And not only is it an insult to the institution that did it, it's a direct slap in the face to humanity. That what this organization is saying is that we will, at any time, denigrate your achievements if we feel it will score us some political point at any moment. You're a fucking loser. No one should trust these people to do anything for any purpose whatsoever. Like, they should not have funding. They should cease to exist as an organization if that's the shit they're going to do. But, like, the West is full of this kind of loser shit. Like that Russian pianist who wasn't allowed to play the piano. I'm just like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What's wrong with your brain? Like, there's something wrong with our brains. No, and you know what? I've been saying brains a lot, but it's not that. There's something wrong with our hearts. That's really what it is, you know? That, like, I think our brains are actually working just fine now that I think about it. You know? That the thing that has actually been corrupted is not our brain. We're very clever, and we're very smart, and we're very resourceful. The thing that has been corrupted is our heart. That we have such big hearts and such love for people with white skin. And the Ukraine crisis has really shown this to be the case. That because the Ukrainians are white, infinite amounts of them can come in, infinite amount of money go in their direction. Literally people willing to risk World War III in order to defend them because they are white. Without a doubt. But that doesn't extend any farther than that. That is a sickness of the heart. Without a doubt. That if the same amount of outpouring occurred when George Bush invaded Iraq, he never would have done it in the first place. That if the same kind of reaction occurred when Nixon was doing bombing campaigns in Southeast Asia, they never would have done it. That something has gone wrong in the Western heart, where we view people as subhuman because of a pigmentation of the color of their skin. And the trouble is, I think that might be harder to overcome. It might be more difficult. Because at least we, as a culture, agree that intelligence is important, that we have schools and educational facilities and all this kind of stuff. And one of the big solutions is always education, right? Even liberals talk that way. But what do you do about someone whose heart has become corrupted? I doubt we'd even agree that that is possible or even matters in this society. Things like empathy and compassion don't tend to play. Interested in seeing a chart showing the amount of trillions pumped into the US economy since 2020? This will affect inflation big time. Yeah, of course it will. Yeah, of course it will. They're doing everything they can to keep the zombie alive. Right? Just keep it lurching along. Just keep it going along. But what's happening with this Ukraine situation? Like, when the rest of the world, like the vast majority of the population of the world, starts getting off the dollar, it's going to be a profound change. Like, it's going to be a profound change. America doesn't make anything. Like, it doesn't have a manufacturing base. And it's going to learn pretty quickly. Not having a manufacturing base is a national security issue. I've been saying it since the beginning. Like, not having a manufacturing base, are you kidding me? Like, you're fucked. You're totally fucked. Capitalism wouldn't have become as widespread without colonization. I mean, the two are inexorably linked. Capitalism constantly demands opening new markets, right? Which is why you've got this absurdist NFT bullshit and all this Bitcoin garbage, and there's this we need to explore space and all this. There always has to be a new frontier, right? That's how capitalism works. It can't stabilize. Because that's not how it works. Because it's extraction and abandonment. That's what it is. It's extraction and abandonment. And so if your strategy is extraction and abandonment, well, that means that you constantly need to go somewhere new that hasn't yet been extracted. And that's colonization. And that's what it looks like. And eventually it exhausts the system because eventually it extracts all resources. And because capitalism and capitalist societies are so fucking wasteful, once the extraction and abandonment process is finished, it leaves nothing behind. I saw a chart recently. It was that classic international map, right? Of the amount of trees that have grown in the last 20 years. Green was more trees, red was less. South America, red. China, green. So we can do it. We just have to decide to do it. And then do it. We just don't care. Ukrainian President Zelensky demanding Renault stop production in Russia because morals are more important than profit. Yeah, does he realize how capitalism works? That's hilarious, dude. No one listens to Zelensky. His own military doesn't listen to him. Why would anybody actually listen to him? Which is why we need to target capitalism rather than trying to right all its wrongs. Yeah. What I was saying is indigenous people who support reparations rather than full decolonization are wrong. Reparations are a neoliberal solution to colonization. Well, but it's not a solution, right? Like, reparations aren't actually a solution. Like, it would be a like put your money where your mouth is moment. But ultimately, in your best case scenario, it would give the indigenous people who are given reparations a buy-in to this failed system, right? Like that, and that's your best case. Like your best case scenario is to allow First Nations people to do capitalism along with the capitalists. So it's just not going to work, right? Like the First Nations people are going to be in the same situation, dealing with the same shit. They'll just also be doing capitalism at the same time. Which I bet that's exactly what Watson just said. I love it when that happens. Let's assume historically wrong people get reparations. Let's assume the ruling class wouldn't say, we now are whole and owe you nothing. The debt is paid. Yeah, there's that, right? That you just like wash your hands and say, what? We gave you reparations, right? As if that's the thing. I'm Métis and Bengali, and I see it all the time. Right-wing Bengalis really boggle my mind. Dude, yeah, that does boggle my mind, man. When I see like people who have gone through like real capitalist colonization and like real oppression, and they've seen like real racism and real shit, and they're still right-wingers. I'm just like, what? I do recognize that not everyone was chanting it, but then nobody actually stopped, said it was wrong. Yeah. No, everybody just kind of moved on, right? Like everybody was just like, okay, yeah, moving on. As you said before, is if there's one Nazi in a group of 10, no one dismissed the Nazi, then you have 10 Nazis. Yeah. Yeah, and everybody just kind of wanted it to shush it away, off you go. Yeah. I had a brief email exchange with Adam something. His email, you can contact him through his YouTube page. And he was complaining. I saw that he was complaining because the tankies wouldn't debate him, right? And so I just sent him a thing, and it was just very, very brief and cordial, just being like, "Oh, hey, you're having trouble finding a communist or a tanky to debate you. I'll do it. I'm a small channel, but if you are looking for someone." He responds, and his letter's polite enough, right? And it's not actively insulting. I think it's a bit clueless, but it's fine. And then he ends with "Glory to Ukraine." So I just send him back an email saying like, "Oh yeah, I understand. Maybe don't end your emails with Nazi slogans. Good luck." Like, I think there's a reason why communists are not debating a guy like Adam something, right? When he's ending his email exchanges with literal Nazi slogans. Like, not too much value to be had in a conversation with someone like that, I think. There's a reason why people decline him. And he says things like, oh, the tankies are quote-unquote scared. And it's just like, no one's scared of you, bud. It's just pointless to talk to a Nazi. Reparations won't be complete until self-determination is recognized. If Donbass deserves self-determination, then the colonized deserve the same in absolute best faith. And that has happened in places. I believe it was Oklahoma. Was it Oklahoma or Ohio? Let's get this right. First Nations people rewarded land in an American state. It was quite large. It was not a... come on. Yeah, it's not popping right up right away. Oh, come on. Maybe if I put indigenous American... That's good. Oh, here we go. Oklahoma. Yeah, about half. Do they have the map? Yeah, so half of Oklahoma, and I think if you go to Google Maps, it's actually on Google Maps as well. They've drawn the lines. So we okay, hold on. I love this game. Oklahoma. So okay, hold on. There's Manitoba. So if I go down here, that's North and South Dakota, and then over here is Oklahoma. About this area. Oh, hold on. I don't have my mouse on it, so I didn't see. Okay, about here. Missouri. I am wrong. Oh, it's down. I thought it was off to the side a bit. I had North South Dakota right. Getting there, guys. Getting there. I feel like I could name most of them. Okay, Oklahoma. And you can see, right, the Osage Reservation, Cherokee Nation, Muskogee, the Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, right? And do they even have it so that the line is visible? Yes. You can see it's very faint, but this side is like a lighter green and that side's darker. I think that's right. Am I right? No. Yes? Yes, because there's like a clean line. You can see it, right? It's a bit confusing because some of this isn't, like some of this is geographical, I think. Yeah, when you like zoom it in, it fades in. Because I doubt it'd be broken up like that, right? But you can see the Choctaw Nation, Creek Nation, right? It's like half of Oklahoma, right? And it includes like Tulsa, like fairly major places. So it's like it just happened like last year. Oh, you can really see it here. Oh, here you go. This is where you really see it. Yeah, you can really see it. So it doesn't include Oklahoma City, of course, but it does include Tulsa, right? Like, and this includes major infrastructure. Like this is a, and it's not like they gave them the fucking desert, right? Like this is the majority of the usable territory of Oklahoma being ceded back to the First Nations people. And it's just like one of these stories that kind of just like went right under the rug. Yeah, July 9th, 2020, so like 2 years ago, right? It's enormous. Like that's wild, right? Like that's wild to me. That like Oklahoma, this state right here, as all of this starts to decline, right? And as America begins to balkanize, this in my view is signs of balkanization, right? I really do think so. That this is like signs of balkanization. That like this territory here, it's eventually going to start looking at the American government and be like, why are we paying you taxes? Get out of here. Get fucked. We're not interested in paying taxes to this federal government. Who gives a fuck? They're not doing anything for us. Like, in my view, it's an inevitability. Because, like, places like Texas, places like California, certainly some place like Oklahoma that's experiencing this kind of change. Like, this is enormous. Like, this is a big change. Right? Like, they're gonna start asking themselves, like, hey, why are we giving money to this, like, death machine? Right? This funding literal Nazis over here. Like, what? What? No. We're just not gonna do that anymore. I do think that it is an inevitability. That capitalism and thus colonialism benefit from the ongoing genocide of indigenous people, and therefore the only logical solution is full decolonization, surrounding the halls of power, giving Turtle Island back to the indigenous people. Yeah, like what do we need it for? There's my big question. Like, once you accept that we should stop clear cutting everything and we should stop extracting and we should stop doing that kind of stuff, why do we need it? I got called a racist because I called for all refugees to get the same treatment as Ukrainians. Isn't that wild, eh? That's wild, bud, that you get called a racist for wanting all refugees to get the same treatment as Ukrainians. Like, what? How does that work? That I'm anti-white and a race traitor. Dude, that's racist. Like, that's racist. Like, that's somebody seeing the world through a very racist lens. You literally stood up and said, all people should be treated universally equal in whatever system we have. And they said, you're anti-white, racist. So they're like explicitly acknowledging that white people should have superior treatment. And in their mind, if you say that white people should not have superior treatment, that's racist. Wow. Because that's racist, right? Like, that is racism. Like, that's the definition of racism. That, like, white people are superior. White people are the superior race, clearly. And we should have superior treatment. And if you say that white people shouldn't have superior treatment, that's racist. Like, wow. Wow, bro. That's like meta racism. Oh. The deal about Chapo is that I hate it when it jumps down like that. I wish I could stop that. The deal about Chapo is that went down over the drama with the Donald. The liberal cowards played both sidism. Yeah. Now it isn't even both siding. Yeah, I know. Look, when they quarantined our Russia, like, the rules are off. Like, all bets are off. Right? They literally went to a subreddit that was about a fucking country and they quarantined it. Like, all bets are off. They can do what they want. And they are. Right? Like, give me money now and get involved in the Discord now so that when I get off the channel, you'll know where to find me. Right? When they kick me off this platform, which is, it's got to be an inevitability, right? Like, it's got to be an inevitability. Like, they, you'll know where to go. Right? Even $1. Because, like, if I get shut out of the internet, if I get shut out of all of this stuff, right, I'm just going to keep doing this through the Discord. And then the only way anyone will ever find me is through word of mouth. That's the way this is going to go. Right? Like, it's highly unlikely that they're going to let a guy like me keep talking. Right? It's highly unlikely. And I think I'm only getting away with it right now because right now I'm just a mouse in a machine. Right? And they can't find all the mice. They keep laying little traps and I don't fall for them. Right? Or I get caught in the trap, but I'm so powerful that I destroy the trap. Yeah, let's say that one. I like that one better. I'd prefer to be, like, powerful rather than elusive. You know what I mean? But I admit what I am. I'm a mouse in the machine, right? The machine is enormous. And it's highly likely that this ends, right? And I don't think I should be pretending otherwise, living in, like, delusional town. And so, deadly serious. If you are in the chat right now and you have not donated $1 to my Patreon, do so. That is how you will get the Discord link. And then you will be linked in to this channel forever. And when I get pulled off this platform, I will continue doing this through the Discord. The hope is that I will be permitted to do this for a period of time, that the monetization will start to kick in, and I'll actually be able to pay rent. That would be nice. And so I'm going to keep doing this until it ends, but let's not pretend. Let's not pretend. I love when Joe Biden says, look fat. Yeah, dude. He should have leaned right into it. Look, fat ass. You fat bastard. Go take a fucking fat run, you fat. I think Americans would have loved it. You know? I think they would have been like, can you believe he said it? Yeah, but that guy was fat, right? Like, I think Americans would have eaten it up. You know? After Donald Trump said, grab him by the pussy, and then won, all bets are off, right? You can say what you want. Like, Americans are going to eat that shit up. Like, this idea that a president needs to be presidential is over, right? Like, you can be a boorish, crass asshole, and Americans are going to be like, yeah, like people want to vote for Al Bundy. That's what they want. They want to vote for Al Bundy. They want to vote for a guy who walks in and is like, hey, America, yeah, things are bad. Nice tits. Yep. Let's go get some brewskis. That's what they want. Is RT banned in France? I know it's banned in Europe, but what about France with the strong leftist movement? I'm not sure. I don't know. After all the lands were conquered with capitalism, they had to move on to space and the internet. Yeah, and create like fake worlds, right? Although apparently the NFT market is shrinking because it blew up for a moment because everybody's like, ooh, what's this little toy? And then everybody went, oh, it's not that exciting. And once you actually explain how it works to people, because it's not that difficult, right? It isn't difficult to understand what it is. It's just stupid, right? That's what happened with NFTs. That's what I think is so funny with NFTs, is that you would explain it to someone, right? And they would look at you and be like, I don't think I get it. And the thing is that they did get it. They just couldn't believe it was as stupid as it was, right? Because it's extremely stupid. Like, the whole NFT market is extraordinarily stupid. And people, I think, didn't want to say, especially in front of people who were like, isn't this great? Isn't this NFT market thing great? I don't think they expressly wanted to say, this sounds really stupid, and the people who are excited about it are dumb. And a lot of the reason why people were excited about NFTs, or acted excited about NFTs, was because it's a Ponzi scheme. So of course I'm going to act excited about it. I'm trying to sell you something. Like, it's a pyramid scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme, right? And so I'm going to be all excited about this Ponzi scheme so that you can get invested in the Ponzi scheme, and then I'll walk away with your money and you'll get stuck with a little cartoon of a monkey crapping on an ape's face or whatever. That's why I said neoliberal, because let's be honest, it's not a solution at all. Yeah, totally, dude. Tankies tend to mean Stalinist, not Marxist. Honestly, dude, when these fucking Nazis say tankies, they mean communists. Like, they don't make the distinction. They're not saying tanky refers to Stalinism because of the historical. Like, they are illiterate. They don't. That's why it doesn't insult me. Like, when I contacted Adam something, I said, hey, you're looking for a tanky. I'm a tanky. Like, I don't give a shit at all. I don't care at all. Like, these guys could call me it's so funny when they say tanky as if it's supposed to insult me. I'm just like, it just seems so awesome. Like, it's not an insult. Like, why am I supposed to be insulted by being called a tanky? Like, it would be like saying, like, hey, there's that big strong arm guy. Hey, strong arm guy! Your arms are so strong and ripped, idiot. Like, thank you, I guess? Like, yes, the Soviet Union did make many tanks that were very effective against the Nazis they defeated. Like, why am I insulted by this? To me, it just speaks to the stupidity of the Nazis and the stupidity of the far right and the ultranationalists. Is that they're so stupid and so ridiculous that they can't even, like, they can't win a war, right? They lose every fight they take. The only thing they can do is beat up, like, women and children and, like, and old men and people who can't defend themselves, right? That was rude. That was rude to women and children. Women and children are powerful and strong, and they can defeat Nazis too, goddammit. We just need to arm them and train them appropriately. For fuck's sake. You guys know what I'm saying. The Nazis, they lose every war, right? They can't win a war. When they actually face genuine competition, they get defeated. And you can see why. They're losers. Like, they don't know how to fight. They don't know how to insult people, right? Like, hey, tanky. Hey, sweet military vehicle. Thanks. So yeah, call me a tanky. I'm completely fine with it. I don't. It's not an insult to me at all. I know you mean it. I know people mean it to be an insult, but it just shows how stupid they are. Slava Rosia. I don't think I know. Who's Rosia? You want to expound on that? There's no such thing as Stalinists. We're just Marxist-Leninists. I'm a Stalinist. I don't call myself a Stalinist. I mean, I like Stalin. But here's the thing, and I think this is what infuriates a lot of guys on this channel, and I want to make it real clear. I like Stalin, but I also like Trotsky. And I get why they were at odds with one another. Like, I get why they fought. Like, and their fight is like base, as base as it can be, I think. I think they just genuinely didn't like each other. It's not hard to see, right? Well, like, once you just kind of accept that on just an intrinsic sort of human level, the two of them, when they got in the same room at the same time, they looked at one another and were just like, who's this fucking asshole? Right? Which, like, just look at them. Just look at them. I know I say I don't like the Trotsky-Stalin conversation, but it's my channel, so fuck you guys. Joseph Stalin. Young Joseph Stalin. That's what really matters. Right? Here's young Joseph Stalin. This is his mugshot. And then here's young Trotsky. And here's... is that his mugshot? Sure, let's use this. This is his mugshot, but they've changed the background. This is fine. So, no. Open image. Like, it's really not tough to see why these two guys, like, immediately did not like one another. Like, it's not difficult. Like, Stalin is kind of more of the jock, right? He's got more charisma. Like, he's a more charismatic figure for sure, right? This guy's more of a bookworm, right? Like, Trotsky was definitely like a military strategist, an intellectual, for sure. Wrote really important theory, stuff that should be read. One of the first major stabs at critiquing fascism and really trying to pin down what fascism is comes from Trotsky, right? Like, Trotsky's invaluable to communism, right? But the reality is that when these two get in the room together, right? It's not hard to figure out that Stalin thought Trotsky was an aloof, narcissistic egghead, and Trotsky thought Stalin was a dumb oaf, right? It's not tough to figure that out, right? And let's be really straight. I've read Stalin's stuff. It's not good. Like, it's important, right? But it's not good. Like, when you read his justification for engaging in the Kulak conflict, right? It is technically correct. It's technically correct, right? That it's very clear that he wanted the argument to be accurate and that he wanted it to be tight and succinct, and it was. But it wasn't good. Like, it wasn't masterfully done. It wasn't very interesting, let's say. Whereas when Trotsky wrote, it was interesting, right? He had a grasp on how to tell a story that was simultaneously logically consistent and correct, but also interesting, right? And but he's not as charismatic, obviously, because he ultimately loses a charisma battle to Stalin, and I think it's one of the great tragedies of the growth of communism is that these two men basically blew up on each other. Because I really do think that if Stalin had have been kinder in victory, and if Trotsky had have been gracious in defeat, and if the two of them had have seen or understood the historical stakes of their relationship and the importance it would have to the Soviet Union, and actually sought to bury this hatchet and find a way to move forward as comrades, even after their history together, it would have made the Soviet project stronger, a great deal stronger. And if Stalin had have been able to withstand Trotsky's criticisms, which were inevitable, and if Trotsky had have been able to be more effective and precise with those criticisms, and pull back on the personal aspect of his ire, which certainly is there, I think those two men could have really done a lot of damage. Like, they could have done a lot to the capitalist death cult. That Stalin is weaker without Trotsky. And Trotsky becomes an effective weapon against communism in many cases because of this feud. That because they blew up off of each other, the whole project suffered for it. And when I think and when I get scared of schisms and leftist infighting and all of that kind of stuff, I think about Trotsky and Stalin. And I think about how it could have been. That I think with Trotsky, it's very possible that the Soviet Union would not have faced dissolution. That, especially you think about an older Trotsky working with an older Stalin. And Trotsky he was more of a visionary than Stalin was. Stalin was a man of the people, for sure. He knew how to work with people. He knew how to talk to people. He knew how to get his way with people too. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not all sunshine and roses with Stalin. Like, he understood how to structure relationships so that he would be at the top of the pile. Obviously, he ended up at the top of the pile. I just don't think that's bad, right? You say that to people and a lot of people get all huffy about it. And I'm just like, what? That's called politics, baby. That's how it works. And Trotsky, I think, in the twilight years, he and Stalin, that Trotsky would have been the one, and was the one, he would have been the one to ask the bigger questions of how do we keep this ball rolling without us? How do we pass the baton to the next generation? How do we make sure the next generation are also communists, who are also dedicated to this communist idea, who are also interested in moving forward away from the systems of capital? How are we doing that? And I think Trotsky would have been the one to ask those questions. And if Stalin had have been an ally in that with him, I think we would look at a very different world today. And the reason why I don't like to get into the Trotsky-Stalin conversation in the chat is because it is far too often just a reflection of that relationship again. That it's just Trotsky and Stalin arguing and ultimately breaking the project in half. Which is exactly what it did. It's exactly what it did. It broke the project in half. And their lives, the relationship between the two of them devolved into a really deeply unfortunate pettiness. And all of the energy that they put in seeking revenge on one another, seeking ways to attack one another, seeking to do harm to one another instead of seeking a path of reconciliation and forgiveness with one another, is deeply sad to me. And so when I see it manifest around me, in leftist movements and in the chat itself and in this channel and in these conversations, I see the story unfold again, and I simply don't want it to be that way. That I would like to think, and I say I would like to think, that if I were in Trotsky's position, where I lost, I would like to believe that I would try as hard as I could to reconcile that loss and continue working for the benefit of my country and my people. And subsequently, if I won, I'd like to believe that I would extend a hand of friendship to the people I defeated and ask them to continue fighting the good fight as an ally and a comrade. That's what I like to believe. If HBO made a movie about these men, Lenin, Stalin, and Trotsky, and worked as hard as they possibly could to make all of them look really good, I think it would be one of the most popular shows ever made. This story is unbelievable. Their story, it's difficult to believe they were real. Like, it's difficult to actually believe that Lenin and Stalin and Trotsky were real men who actually did the things that they did. It's astounding who they were and what they did and what they achieved. It's astounding. And I think that you should read this guy's work, and I think you should read this guy's work, and I think you should read Lenin, and I think you should read Marx, and I think you should read Mao, and I think you should read Deng, and I think you should read Xi Jinping. I think you should read all of them and accept them for their failings. Accept them for the mistakes that they made. Because everybody made mistakes. Everybody made errors. Nobody is free from it, and nobody will be free from it. I mean, the very fact that the Soviet Union doesn't survive Stalin, really. Like, that's a mistake. That is something of an indictment of his legacy, frankly. That he was not able to put some kind of structure in place. And I think the reason why he wasn't able to put some kind of structure in place is that he lacked the vision to do it. These two men complement one another. That's what's so infuriating about it. I think they would have been powerful together. Anyway. I'm not talking about indigenous people becoming millionaires. I'm saying we have literally cut the tongues out of indigenous kids for speaking their language. Yeah, you think some money's going to fix it? Yeah, no shit, eh? No, dude, you're absolutely on the money. Like, it's incredible. Was it you who denied the debate? No, he decided not to. I'm too small. And honestly, I'm not insulted at all. Like, if I knew it was something of a gambit. I'm not a big channel. Like, and he's got 700,000 subscribers. Like, why does he want to platform, a guy who has 1,000? Like, it makes total sense. Like, I'm not mad about it. But, like, glory to Ukraine, right? Like, yeah, there's a reason that we're not debating you, dude. Like, you're walking around saying Nazi slogans. Like, what do you think's going on? Yeah, there are thousands of indigenous bodies. No amount of money will fix that. Yeah. Completely dismantling capitalism. Absolutely, Famita. Like, abso-fucking-lutely. Yeah, like, you're preaching to the choir here, man. Like, for real. That's the name of this show is Capitalism is a Death Cult. Here we go. I did the Trotsky thing. I did the Trotsky-Stalin thing. I really don't think it's realistic. Wishful thinking to assume that any part of the U.S. could just refuse to pay taxes or try to separate. The police and military would crush them. I mean, they could try. No, I mean, they could try, dude. Like, if Texas declared its independence, like, I'm sure it would lead to conflict. Like, I'm sure. But like, I'm not saying it would be peaceful. It'd be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I think a state's going to try. But like, will the military and the police have the will to do it? Right? Like, it's one thing to go over here and like blow up some brown people. Right? It's another to like look at Californians and Texans and to oppress them with similar tactics. Right? Like, it's a different ball of wax altogether. There's a very human aspect to it. Like, the police and military are not robots, right? They are people. And there's a difference between like going overseas for the glory of America and blowing up the Middle East and all those guys, right? All those Muslims, right? And doing it to your neighbors. It's a different sort of a thing. The only way U.S. balkanization happens is if it first undergoes a total societal collapse due to economic failure. Like, yeah, I agree with that. Do you not think we're going through an economic failure? Hey, I am me. How you doing? Popped in just now. Some other Okie here at the commies page, I'm telling. I don't know how to interpret that, bud. Good to see you, though. I don't like most commie discourse this way because you have to answer a bunch of essay questions to get in. Tell me about it. I'm trying to get into the Jen Zedong Discord after they got broken down. And you got to answer this whole like laundry list of shit. You got to like defend yourself. I'm like, oh my God, like... I get it though. Like, I understand. Like, they kind of want like a baseline to work with. I love Delusional Town. Not only am I the king of Spain, I'm also the entire eastern seaboard of North America. Okay. You can't quit. You're old as 7. That means 7's more centuries of working here. You didn't want to work here. Maybe you should have applied to our competitor, Liberty Mutual. What in the... I know, NFTs are the dumbest things, dude. NFTs, the so far ultimate expression of fictitious capital. Yeah, no shit. No shit. An NFT is like getting married to someone, then they sleep with everyone else, and the person who owns the NFT is saying, yeah, but they're my spouse, they married me. If that's what you're into, Mock, if that's what you're into, if you're down for that, right? It's fine. I have been known, and I am on record, you can find it in the past, I think everybody should have sex with everybody all the time. I think that that's completely fine. Like, really. Like, I simply don't get it. Like, why would you not want to have sex? Why would you not want to have sex with another person? What's hanging? What is hanging things up here? Shouldn't everyone always have sex with one another all of the time? Isn't that like one of the best parts of being alive in the world? Don't you want to have sex? Don't you want to have an enjoyable sexual experience? Once again, the problem is capitalism. Yeah, literal Ponzi scheme for sure. Eminem is a literal tard for paying a 400K for an NFT. I mean, honestly, there comes a point where you have so much money that it doesn't matter. That like someone like Eminem, he probably knew that it was a Ponzi scheme. He was probably aware of it, but he's just like, how do I get $400,000 to my buddy without anybody giving a shit? Sure, I'll buy this little fucking whatever, right? Like, was it him who declined? He declined. I'm a follower of John now on Patreon. Thank you, Major. I appreciate it, bud. I'll hit you up. Also very effective against Nazi uprisings in Budapest and Prague, and a bunch of pseudo-leftists are still butthurt about that. I don't know what that's in reference to. That's okay. Russia equals Russia's. Ah, there we go. See? We're explaining things. As if caring about other people should be something to make fun of for someone, yeah. I like Trotsky during the Revolutionary War. He was a good commander. Absolutely. But Lenin did dunk on him a lot in his writings for a reason. Yeah, right? And I feel like when you read Lenin, you get a good picture of the both of these men. Right? Like, Lenin didn't hold back on either of them. Right? Like, and I also do put a little bit on Lenin. Like, I think Lenin was not... He didn't help the situation. I'll put it that way. Right? And, I mean, that could also really indicate the degree to which these two men disliked one another. Right? That they had been so factionalized that even Lenin couldn't find a way to unify them, right? Like, and you can't really, like, ultimately it comes down to each of those men. Like, it's up to them to resolve it. And they just chose to kind of go down this path. Stalin was a huge book. Like, he was well read. Don't get me wrong. But, like, I don't think it translated into his writing as effectively. Like, no, of course Stalin was well read. You don't become like a revolutionary leader in this manner without having read something. Trotsky knows all about fascism. He was walking around in Italy around the same time Bordiga was imprisoned. Yeah, Adam, how you doing, bud? And I can never tell when YouTube blocks anything. There's no rhyme or reason to it. That's true, too, Transylvanian. That's absolutely true. You're right about that. Stalin's writing, he does do that. He distills Marx and Lenin down. And again, that kind of speaks to how he's a man of the people, right? And I guess maybe it's unfair of me to interpret him in that way, that it's reductive, because maybe he made it that way on purpose, right? Maybe he distilled it down to that kind of simple language so that anyone could understand it. You know? To what degree is that intentional, I think is what I'm trying to really drive towards. And that's what I really love about talking about Stalin and Trotsky together without the confrontation. Because I find I learn more this way when I talk about Trotsky and Stalin as the figures that they are and not as an attempt to one-up on each other. Because I find them both to be so fascinating and interesting and useful. Like, there's really good stuff all over the place. And the conflict between the two of them. Like, I know people who show up to my protests who will just fucking go to town on this. And I'm just like, why? Like, why? Can't I watch Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation and think that both of these captains are good? Why do I gotta pick one? Again, the outlooks between the two are like oil and water. Yeah, two-stage theory nationalism versus socialist internationalism. Yeah. I also do tend to find that Trotsky's position of like permanent revolution to be a bit convenient. You know? That's something I will say about Trotsky. Like, it's a bit convenient, don't you think? That like, oh yeah, permanent revolution. So either I'm the leader of a permanent revolution, or I am the leader of the struggle against those who would be against the permanent revolution. So like I'm the leader anyway, either way, right? It's convenient. It's a convenient position to take, I think, in Trotsky's like this idea of permanent revolution. I would recommend to anyone interested in understanding the Stalin-Trotsky split better to read Dominenko Lucerdo's book on Stalin. That's, what, is that the dark history? The dark, it's the dark something. I started reading that. Add those two above comments of mine in a Google search. Add those two above comments of mine. Fred. Oh man, what are you doing? Chart I've been trying to share is Google. So do I Google? Dude, this is a puzzle. It's like I'm playing a game right now. Fred M1SL? M1SL. Did I do it? Add those two above comments of mine in a Google search. I'm really trying here, bud. M1SL. Fred St. Louis Fed.org? Woo! Categories: money, banking, finance, monetary data, M1 and components. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. billions of dollars. Here you go. Billions of dollars. Flying high through the sky, it's Astro Boy, Astro Boy. La da 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 da. I can't imagine why there's so much inflation. Why is the economy inflating so much, do you think? America is so fucked, bro. Like, it is so fucked. This is fucked. This is fucky. Now, and let's be really clear though, right? You can get away with this kind of printing as long as you tax it back, right? If only there were like trillions of dollars being hoarded by a worthless class of parasites. Oh well, I guess this is unsolvable. Austerity it is. Oh, that is not accurate. Stalin was never opposed to internationalism, just like the Chinese are not opposed to it. But the reality is that the revolutionary needed to be consolidated. If they immediately tried to go on the offensive in neighboring countries, it would have been crushed. The Soviet Union was devastated, very backwards. It needed to rebuild in peace. Oh, sorry about it. See, this is what I worry about. Here we go. As Lenin said, facts are stubborn things. The revolution betrayed, and its prognostications for the future of the Soviet Union cannot be denied now. It all came true. The main reason why Trotskyism has a bad reputation today is not so much because of Trotsky himself, because his followers have been historically manipulated and weaponized against socialist states. I do see this. I see this quite a bit, actually. Like, I think that the Trotskyists themselves can be their own worst enemies. To complete the game and call the other side traitor. If I were a Trotskyist, I would not open that can of worms because they're uncomfortable horrors. Uh-oh. Fight. Here we go. Guys, you're never gonna get this one resolved on a chat like this. You're never gonna get this resolved on a chat like this. It's so funny watching you try. Just you're like dunking on each other. Oh, you're spewing debunked Grover Fur apologetics now. Debunked by bourgeoisie academics who are hell-bent on upholding the anti-communist, anti-Bolshevik, anti-Stalin mythology. Trotsky is the great what-if of history. If Trotsky became the leader of the Soviet Union, how would history be different? I mean, history probably would be different, but we don't know how. There's a very good case that if Trotsky had become leader of the Nazis, may not come to power. Oh, come on. The Nazis may not come to power if Trotsky becomes the leader? Bro. The Republicans may win the Spanish Civil War. Oh, I feel, see, that Trotskyists do this, dude. That's like imbuing someone with superpowers. That, like, I don't think that Trotsky has the ability to sway world events so deeply to prevent the rise of the Nazis themselves. And like that's a lot of what-ifism. That's a lot of that. Like, yeah, we can speculate about hypotheticals. That Trotsky had charged USSR would have collapsed while yeah, we don't get anywhere with this. Like, it takes, that's what I was saying earlier. It does take on this tone of just like, which Starfleet captain do you like the best? And it can be fun, I think. And I like to keep it fun. But like, I have seen like groups get torn apart with this shit. And I'm just like, what? Like, how? Why? From them himself, History of Russian Revolution, The Revolution Betrayed, My Life, The Struggle Against Fascism in Germany. Yeah, oh yeah. And I think that all of this is like, and what's interesting is it's because it's from Trotsky's position, right? Like, you're going through it, and he obviously doesn't like Stalin. Like, it's so clear. But there's a lot of good information in there. And, like, Trotsky's position of the revolution betrayed, like, that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about, like, how he couldn't get over his loss to Stalin, right? That it's a bit overwrought, if you ask me. That, like, he lost a political contest, right? And instead of treating it like that, it's the revolution betrayed, right? Like, it's this it's so overwrought. It's so over the top, if you ask me. Like, did Stalin betray the revolution, and did Stalin betray communism and the communist ideals? I don't think so, bud. Like, I don't think so, right? Like, I think it's a bit much. It's a bit overwrought, I think. And, like, Stalin did things, controversial things, I think, in the name of communism, post Trotsky. Like, it's, did the two of them have a difference of opinion and a difference of vision? For sure. But, like, the revolution betrayed. A bit much. Bit much. Just like egos just blowing up on each other, you know? A big problem of the Western left is the martyrdom fetish, the obsession with placing the loser on a pedestal, idealizing the failed revolution that never materialized into a socialist society. It's easy to criticize those states and leaders that needed to make real hard decisions, make compromises, take messy reality into account, and could not preserve the perfect intellectual's ideals. But at least they built socialism, flawed as it was. It is easy to criticize sitting on the sidelines and never having to actually govern, to actually develop industry and defend your revolution. I've been planning to read some Trotsky, but thinking of something with more historical perspective, like Sarda, regardless. Oh yeah, and honestly, this is all good. But it's like I say about anything, right? And we're going real long on this stuff. Yeah, Jen Zidane got quarantined for sure. You should read everything. Like, I think you should always read all propaganda, right? Like Chinese propaganda, Russian propaganda, Italian propaganda, American propaganda, South American propaganda, Canadian propaganda. It's all good. Just as long as you know who wrote it, right? As long as you know who wrote it and you understand what they're coming from and what they're trying to do, then it's all good. And it's all just information then. The trouble that you get into is if you look at, like, American propaganda is exactly what is happening now. Where you look at American propaganda, and there are people who look at American propaganda, and that's real. You know? And it's like, there's lots of sides to this thing. There's lots of sides to this thing. There's lots of perspectives to take. History and Critique of a Black Legend. Yeah, that's the one. I gotta get back on that one. There's an English translation on LibGen. Yeah. All right, guys. Look, we made it through we made it through the Stalin Trotsky conversation without the whole thing blowing up. We did it. It can be done. Yeah, exactly, Transylvania, right? The dispute has only been raging for 100 years. I'm fairly certain we can settle this in the next 30 minutes, maybe an hour tops. Look, the very fact that the whole thing didn't just devolve into bullshit is a win. Let's take it. Let's live in this moment together. We talked about Stalin and Trotsky, and it didn't turn into a shit fest. We did it. Yeah! All right, guys. We've reached the end. Always remember, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These fucking billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars printing it out of thin air, no less, in order to make sure that you never fucking realize it. And that you'll just stay the good little commodity that they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're gonna need it.